Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time and across the world to ancient India, but we're not going to be visiting the opulent palaces of Maharajas or meditating with wise sages in serene temples. No, tonight's journey is a bit different. We're going to step into the life of someone at the very bottom of one of history's most rigid social hierarchies of lives, so marginalized they weren't analyzed. They weren't even considered part of the ladder. To be honest, your chances of a comfortable life here are, well, let's just say navigating the invisible rules is the real survival challenge. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It truly helps the channel grow. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of isn't a sound, but a feeling, a damp coldness seeping up from the packed earth floor. Through the thin reed mat you call a bed, you stir, pulling a rough, threadbare blanket a little tighter around your shoulders. There are no windows in your small, one-room hut. Just a low doorway covered by a flap of stiffened hide. The only light trickles in through the gaps in the thatched roof, thin silver lines in the pre-dawn gloom. The air is thick with the smell of old smoke, damp earth, and the faint, lingering scent of your family sleeping beside you. You sit up, careful not to disturb your parents. Your world is this small, circular space, its walls a mixture of mud and cow on a cheap and defective insulator. You've been told. You crawl silently towards the doorway and push the flap aside. The air outside is cool and bites at your skin. Your settlement, a small cluster of huts almost identical to your own, is quiet. It huddles at the edge of a sparse, scrubby piece of land, separated from the main village by a wide, dusty field and a sluggish, muddy stream that people use as a convenient dumping ground. From here, you can see it, the real village, even in the dim light. It looks different. The shapes of the houses are larger, more defined, with tiled roofs that glint even without direct sunlight. You can just make out the solid silhouette of the village grain silo and, far in the distance, the pointed spire of the temple, a dark finger pointing to the heavens. Thy world away. You are not yet old enough to fully grasp the words for it. Purity, pollution, caste, but you understand the distance. It's a lesson you learn not from words, but from the space itself. That field is more than just a field. It's a border, a wall you can't see, but one that is more solid than any stone. This is the life of the Avarna, those outside the four-tiered system of Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra that structures the society you were born into. You are, for lack of a better term, an outcast. And when exactly this rigid, hereditary system of social stratification began is a topic that historians and scholars still fiercely debate. Some trace its ideological roots back thousands of years to sacred texts, suggesting it was an ancient organizing principle. Others argue that the version you're living, the one with its brutally enforced rules of untouchability, became systematically entrenched much more recently. But for you, shivering in the doorway of your hut, these academic arguments are meaningless. This is your reality, the only one you've ever known. Your father begins to stir inside. The sound that truly starts your day isn't a bird's song or a temple bell, but the soft, rhythmic scrape of his tools. It's not a farmer polishing a plow or a potter turning a wheel. His tools are different. A set of long-handled brooms made from coarse straw, and a sharpened blade with a curved edge. It's what unhandled worn smooth from years of use. These are the tools of your family trade, the work that defines you, the work that keeps you on this side of the field. You watch as the sky slowly brightens from charcoal gray to a soft, washed-out blue. The main village is coming to life. You can hear the distant, muffled lowing of a well-fed cow, the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Their day is beginning. Your day, too, is about to begin, and the first, most urgent need of the morning is pressing on your mind. Water. You're thirsty, and the pot for cooking the morning's meager meal is empty. But getting water isn't as simple as walking to the nearest well, because the nearest well, the one with the cool, clean water, sits over there, on the other side of the invisible wall. Your small hands wrap around the cool, rough clay of the water pot. It's not heavy yet, just awkward. Your mother is still asleep, and a small, defiant thought flickers in your mind. You can do this yourself. You are big enough now. You can fetch the water. The thirst in your throat is a sharp, immediate need, and the image of the main village well, with its stone sides and sturdy wooden winch, is a promise of cool relief. You step out into the field. The sun is just beginning to crest the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the ground. The earth is cool and soft under your bare feet. With each step you take away from your cluster of huts and towards the village proper, the world seems to change. The air smells different here. You can catch the scent of wood smoke from breakfast fires, the fragrance of flowers from someone's small garden, and the rich, loamy smell of well-tended earth. It's the smell of a life you only ever observe from a distance. You are halfway across the field now. A few early rising villagers are moving about. A man guides two lumbering oxen towards a field, his long staff resting on his shoulder. He sees you. He doesn't smile or wave. His eyes simply slide over you, as if you are a rock or a stray dog, a part of the landscape not worth acknowledging. You lower your own gaze, just as you've been taught without ever being told to do so. Then keep walking. You've reached the edge of the village. The houses here are close together, their mud brick walls whitewashed and clean. The ground is hard-packed and swept, and there it is, the well. It's the center of this small universe. A low, circular wall of smooth, gray stones. A wooden frame stands over it, a thick rope coiled and ready. Several women are already there. Their saris are vibrant splashes of color: saffron, indigo, and rose. They wear silver bangles that chime softly as they move. Then their laughter rings out in the morning air as they gossip, waiting their turn. They are beautiful, and they seem to belong to the sunlight itself. You hesitate at the edge of the clearing, the empty pot feeling heavier now. Your thirst is a small, hard knot in your stomach. One of the women turns, her laughter dying in her throat as she sees you. Her eyes widen. Then, a chain reaction. The other women turn. The chatter stops. The only sound is the creak of the rope as one woman hastily pulls up her bucket. The silence is a physical thing, like a heavy blanket suddenly thrown over the scene. It's a silence you can feel, thick with unspoken meaning. You take a tentative step forward. Stop. The word is sharp, like a whip crack. It comes from an older woman, her face a mask of stern disapproval. What are you doing here? You just look at her. Clutching your pot, you point a small, hesitant finger towards the well. Water, you whisper, the word barely audible. A gasp ripples through the small group. The older woman takes a step towards you, her hand held up as if to ward off a foul spirit. Go back, she commands, her voice low and dangerous. You cannot draw water here. Your presence pollutes it. Go. Another woman, younger, mutters. Even her shadow, be careful. Shame, hot and stinging, floods your cheeks. You don't fully understand the logic, but you understand the revulsion in their eyes. You understand the absolute certainty in their voices. This place, this water, is not for you. You turn, the empty pot banging against your leg, and you walk away. You don't run. You walk, feeling their eyes on your back with every step. The walk back across the field feels 10 times as long. The sun is higher now, and the ground is no longer cool. When you get back to the hut, your mother is awake. She sees your face, the single tear tracing a clean path through the dust on your cheek, and she sees the empty pot. She doesn't need to ask what happened. She just pulls you close, her hand stroking your hair. We don't use that well, she says softly, her voice filled with a tired resignation. That is for them. It is clean water, and we are not. This is the moment the abstract concept becomes a concrete rule. This is a coordinate of the caste system, the idea of ritual purity. It's not about physical dirtiness, it's about a spiritual, inherent state of being, and this belief dictates everything. Historians point out that control over water resources was one of the most powerful and effective tools for enforcing social hierarchy. By denying access to a communal well, the upper castes could control the health, dignity, and very survival of communities like yours. Your mother then explains something that sounds like a strange magic rule. Even if they gave you the water in your pot, she says, we could not use it. The clay, it holds on to the pollution. It can never be clean again. This is a fascinatedly strange and specific belief that existed in many regions. The idea was that porous materials like clay or wood could absorb ritual impurity, making them permanently defiled. Metal vessels, on the other hand, were sometimes considered salvageable through specific cleansing rituals. It's a whole complex, unwritten physics of purity. The exact origins and specifics of these purity laws are, of course, a source of endless debate among scholars. They varied significantly by region and time, with some historians arguing they became more rigid and brutally enforced under later political pressures, while others see a continuous, ancient thread that for you, the debate is over. The lesson is learned. Your mother takes your hand and leads you not towards the village, but in the opposite direction, towards the sluggish, muddy stream that marks the boundary of your world. The water is brownish and cloudy. You can see bits of refuse floating near the banks. This, she shows you, is your well. This is your water. You watch as she dips the pot in, scooping up the murky liquid that you will drink. That will be used to cook the little food you have. And as you look at your reflection in the cloudy water, you understand. There are two kinds of people in the world. Those who drink from the stone well, and those who drink from the muddy stream. The shame from the well incident settles into your bones. The low, constant hum of something you can't quite name. It's not just about the water. It's about who you are. And a big part of that is what you're called. You don't have a family name in the way a Brahmin priest or a Kshatriya, a warrior, does a name that connects you to a lineage of honor or power. Your identity is simpler and much heavier. It's the name of your entire community. One afternoon, you're sitting outside the hut, idly tracing patterns in the dust with a stick. Your father is mending a broken leather strap, his hands moving with a practiced, methodical rhythm. A group of boys from the main village, none much older than you, are walking along the edge of the field. They are emboldened by their numbers, their voices loud and jeering. They don't come close, they never do, but their words travel easily across the open space. Look, a little Chandala, one of them shouts, pointing directly at you. The other boys laugh. The word stings, even though you don't fully know its history. It sounds ugly, harsh. You look at your father, expecting him to be angry, to shout back, but he doesn't even look up from his work. His hands don't stop moving. It's as if he has heard them, but you know he has. His stillness is a lesson in itself. You do not react. You do not give them the satisfaction. Later, when the boys have moved on and the sun begins to dip lower, you ask him, what does it mean? Chandala. Your father puts down his work and sighs. The long, weary sound. He looks at you, his eyes full of a sadness you're only just beginning to understand. It is one of the names they give us, he says. It's an old word. It means we are outside. It means we are the ones who handle the dead. This is a major historical point. The term Chandala appears in ancient texts like the Manusmriti, a foundational and highly controversial legal and social code. It describes a group born from a specific impure union of castes, relegated to the most despised tasks, executing criminals, handling corpses, and living outside the main settlements. They were described as being the lowest of men. Your father continues, his voice low. They have other names for us, too. Some call us Nishere, the forest dwellers, as if we are wild animals. Some just say Benchama, the fifth category, because we are not even counted in the four main ones. He pauses, picking up a small, smooth stone and turning it over in his palm. But these are their names for us, not our names for ourselves. This introduces a crucial, and often overlooked, aspect of this history. while the upper castes assigned these labels. The communities themselves had their own internal names, their own sense of identity, often rooted in their specific occupation or region. They didn't just passively accept the derogatory terms. We, your father says, his voice gaining a quiet strength, are from the people who have always worked the leather. It is our skill. It is our knowledge. It is difficult. And they wrinkle their noses at the smell. But their soldiers need our sandals and their farmers need our harnesses. HES teaching you a quiet form of resistance. HES telling you that your identity is not defined by their slurs, but by your own skills and heritage, however maligned. This brings up a point of ongoing scholarly discussion, the agency and resistance of these marginalized groups. For a long time, history was written from the top down, portraying untouchables as passive victims. But more recent scholarship has painstakingly uncovered a rich history of their own cultures, religions, and subtle acts of defiance. They created their own epics, worshipped their own gods, and carved out spaces of dignity in an undignified world. The very act of maintaining a separate, positive self-identity was a form of resistance. They call us a name that means unclean, your father says, finally looking you in the eye. But think of this, they're sacred drums, the ones they beat in the temple you cannot enter. The drumhead is made of hide. Who do you think prepares that hide? Who makes it possible for their holy music to sound? It's a strange and powerful thought. They paradox. Your unclean work is a necessary component of their clean rituals. It's a logic that feels twisted and unfair, but it also plants a tiny seed of a different kind of understanding in your mind. The most famous name, of course, is the one that would emerge much later in history, Dalit. This is a word that these communities chose for themselves. It comes from Sanskrit and means broken or ground down. By adopting this name, they weren't accepting defeat. They were making a powerful political statement, acknowledging their oppression while simultaneously creating a unified identity to fight against it. But that word, that future, is centuries away. For now, you are a child, sitting in the dust, learning the vocabulary of your existence. You learn that a name can be a weapon used against you. You learn that the names you call yourselves are a shield, and you learn that the silence of your father in the face of taunts is not weakness, but a quiet, stubborn refusal to be broken by a word. The next time you hear the name Chandala hurled across the field, it still stings. But now, underneath the sting, there is a flicker of something else. The echo of your father's voice, telling you who you really are. The world of adults, with its invisible walls and heavy names, is confusing. The world of children, you hope, might be different, simpler. But you are about to learn that the rules of the grown-ups cast long, dark shadows over the playground. It's a hot, sleepy afternoon. The men and most of the women are away, engaged in their various labors on the outskirts of the village. The air is still, and the sun beats down relentlessly. From your settlement, you can hear the faint sounds of laughter and shouting. A group of village children are playing a game in the shade of a large banyan tree, its sprawling branches providing a cool refuge. The game is a version of tag, with loud, joyous shrieks as the chaser gets close to their target. It looks like fun. It looks free. A deep longing pulls at you, an urge to join in, to run and laugh and feel the simple thrill of the chase. You've seen them play before, always from a distance, but today, the pull is stronger than the caution. You wander out from your cluster of huts, moving slowly, trying to be unobtrusive. You stop at the edge of the dusty field that separates your worlds, close enough to see the details of the game. A boy with a red cloth tied around his waist is it. HES fast, darting between the thick aerial roots of the banyan tree. A girl with two long, dark braids squeals as he almost catches her. You watch for a long time, a silent, invisible spectator. Eventually, one of the children, a boy a little older than you, notices you. He stops running and points. Look, the game sputters to a halt. All eyes turn to you. They are not the hostile, cold eyes of the women at the well. These are curious eyes, wary, but curious. What do you want? The boy asks. Chi, That's the clear leader of the group. You swallow. Your throat suddenly dry. Can I play? You ask. The word soft, almost carried away by the breeze. A moment of silence hangs in the air. The children look at each other. They haven't been taught the explicit hatred yet, just a vague, instinctual sense of separation. The leader, the boy with the red cloth, shrugs. It's a gesture that says, why not? One more person to chase. Okay, he says, but you have to stand over there. He points to a spot several feet away from the base of the tree. You can't come under the tree. It's a strange rule, but you accept it eagerly. It's a compromise. You can play, but at a distance. You're in the game, but not really in it. Your designated area is out in the full glare of the sun, while they get to stay in the cool shade of the banyan. The game restarts. It's awkward at first. You run, but you have to be careful not to cross the invisible line into their territory. They chase, but they stop short of your boundary, their hands reaching out but never touching you. It's a fragmented, disjointed version of the game. But then, the thrill of it starts to take over. You're laughing, a little breathlessly. You dodge and weave within your sunny patch of ground. In a moment of pure, unthinking joy, you forget the rules. The boy with the red cloth is chasing you. You dart to the side, bend in your haste. Your foot lands in the shade of the banyan tree. You have crossed the line. Everything stops. Instantly, the boy who was chasing you recoils as if HES touched a hot coal. He stares at the spot where your foot touched the shaded ground. You can't do that, he shouts, his voice a mixture of fear and anger. Another girl starts to cry. He touched the shade. He touched our shade. You snatch your foot back as if the ground itself had burned you. You don't understand. It's just shade. It's just dirt. How can you make the ground bad? This is a visceral demonstration of the concept of ritual pollution extending beyond just physical touch. In its most extreme interpretations, even a person's shadow or, in this case, their presence in a ritually significant space like the cool, communal area under a sacred banyan tree was considered polluting. This is a point that many historical accounts emphasize, the sheer pervasive nature of the rules. It was just about not touching a person. It was about not sharing the same path, the same air, the same shade. The leader boy's father, a farmer on his way back from the fields, happens to be walking nearby. He sees the commotion. He strides over, his face grim. What is going on here? His son points at you, his voice trembling. He came under the tree. The Chandala boy. He came into our space. The man's eyes lock onto you. It's the same look you saw from the women at the well, but harder, colder. He doesn't shout at you. He doesn't raise his hand. He does something much worse. He turns to his son and says, loud enough for everyone to hear, go to the river, all of you, and wash thoroughly. The game is over. He dismisses you completely, as if you are not even there. He turns and herds his children away, their fun day ruined, leaving you standing alone in the hot sun. The laughter is gone. The joy has evaporated. There's only the silence, and the oppressive heat, and the heavy weight of a rule you broke without ever knowing it existed. The specific origins of these hyper-detailed purity rules are, naturally, debated by historians. Did they evolve from ancient tribal taboos, from early hygiene concerns that became twisted into religious dogma? Or were they later inventions designed specifically to cement a social hierarchy? The consensus is likely a complex mix of all three, evolving over centuries. But the outcome for you is simple. You've learned that even in a child's game, the lines are drawn. And you've learned that your very presence can be seen as a stain, something that needs to be washed away. You walk back to your hut, the dust of the field feeling different under your feet now, heavier. You have learned that some games, you are never, ever allowed to win. The image of the children being led away to wash themselves clean of your presence sticks with you. It becomes clear that knowledge in your world is divided. Just like the people in the water, there is their knowledge, and there is your knowledge. You see it every morning. A group of boys from the upper castes, mostly Brahmins, walk past the field on their way to the home of the village guru. They are clean, their hair neatly tied, and they carry small wooden slates. You can sometimes hear the sing-song rhythm of their chanting as they pass, reciting verses you don't understand from books you'll never see. They are going to school, or what passes for it in your village. There, they will learn to read and write the sacred Sanskrit language. They will study mathematics, philosophy, and the holy texts, the Vedas, the Upanishad. They are being given the keys to the kingdom of formal knowledge, the tools of power and administration. You, on the other hand, are not allowed within 100 paces of the Guru's home. The idea of you learning to read the sacred texts is not just forbidden, it's considered a sacrilege of the highest order. The knowledge itself is deemed too pure for you to even hear, let alone comprehend. This monopoly on literacy was a cornerstone of the caste system's power. By controlling who could read and interpret the religious and legal texts, the Brahmin caste maintained its authority for centuries. The laws, the rituals, the social order all were locked away in a script that the vast majority, especially those at the bottom, were barred from learning. For an untouchable to even overhear a Vedic chant was, in some periods and regions, an offense punishable by extreme measures. So, your education takes a different form. It's not one of slates and scriptures, but of observation, imitation, and whispered instruction. Your school is the dusty yard outside your hut. Your teachers are your parents, your grandparents, the other elders in your small, isolated community. Your mother teaches you a different kind of math, not the abstract numbers for calculating planetary positions, but the practical arithmetic of survival. She shows you how to count the reeds needed to patch the roof, how to estimate if the small handful of grain you've been given will last for 2 meals or 3. She teaches you to identify which wild roots are edible and which are poisonous, a knowledge far more vital to your daily life than any philosophical treatise. Your father is your primary instructor in the family's dharma, not the grand cosmic duty the Brahmins speak of, but the specific, hereditary occupation that your family is bound to. In your case, it's leatherworking. He doesn't give you lectures. He teaches with his hands. He shows you how to take the raw, stiff hide of a dead animal a task no one else will do and begin the long, arduous process of turning it into something useful. You learn the precise, sharp smell of the tanning agents, the acrid lime and the pungent juices from certain tree barks. This is a cold, hard piece of trivia about ancient tanning. It was a chemically complex and foul-smelling process. They used everything from caustic lime solutions to fermenting animal brains and dung to break down the hide and make it pliable. It was this intimate, necessary contact with death and decay that made tanners like your family so ritually unclean. You watch his strong, calloused hands as he scrapes the last bits of flesh and hair from the skin. He teaches you how to stretch it, dry it, and then work it with stones and blunt tools until it becomes soft and supple. He shows you how to cut the leather without wasting an inch, how to punch holes with an AWL, and how to stitch it with a sinew thread into a sturdy pair of sandals or a strong harness for an ox. This is your inheritance. It is a highly skilled craft, a form of technical knowledge passed down through generations, but it is a knowledge that carries a permanent stain. The nature of this vocational training brings up a still debated topic among historians. Was the caste system primarily a social religious structure, or was it an economic one, a kind of proto-guild system that went horribly wrong? Some scholars argue that it began as a way to organize labor, ensuring that essential but unpleasant jobs were always filled. Others maintain that this economic aspect was secondary to the primary religious and racial purity ideologies. The reality, as you experience it, is that the two are inseparable. Your job defines your spiritual status, and your spiritual stat locks you into your job. One evening, as you're struggling to stitch the pieces of thick leather together, your fingers clumsy and sore, you ask your father, "Did you ever want to do something else, like farm the land?" He looks at his own hands, stained and scarred from a lifetime of this work. "Wanting is a luxury," he says, his voice flat. "A farmer needs land. A potter needs a wheel and a place in the market. We have our hands, and we have this knowledge, This is ours. It is what we do to eat. It is who we are. There is no other choice. His words are not bitter, just factual. They outline the rigid walls of your world with stark clarity. The boys walking to the guru's house are learning how to rule the world. You are learning how to survive in the one tiny, cordoned-off corner of it that you've been assigned. Your classroom has no roof. Your books are the textures of leather and the patterns of edible leaves, and your final exam is making it to the next sunrise. The lessons from your father are not just about technique. They are about accepting your fate. You are now old enough to understand that the work he does, the work you are learning, is not just a job. It is, in the eyes of the village, a divine sentence. This is your family SSVA Dharma, your prescribed duty, an inescapable part of your being. One morning, a man from the village proper appears at the edge of the field. He is a Vaishya, a merchant. You can tell by his fine but practical dhoti and the slight air of anxious business about him. He doesn't cross into your territory. He stops at the invisible line and calls out for your father. Your father wipes his hands on a piece of burlap and walks to meet him, also stopping at the line, leaving a respectful distance of at least 10 feet between them. The merchant points to a large, unmoving shay ploughing in a ditch further down the path. It's a cow, the sacred animal, the symbol of life and bounty, has died of some sickness during the night. The merchant's face is a mixture of piety and disgust. It must be removed, he says, his voice clipped. Before it taints the path, he doesn't say what it will be removed for. He doesn't need to. This is the transaction. He tosses a small cloth pouch onto the ground between them. It lands in the dust with a soft clink of a few copper coins. Then, without another word, he turns and walks away, as if to distance himself from the unpleasant business as quickly as possible. Your father picks up the pouch and then turns to you. Come, he says. It is time for you to learn the whole job. This is one of the central, paradoxical roles of an untouchable community. The handling of death. The cow is the most sacred animal in Hinduism, revered and protected. But the moment it dies, its carcass becomes a source of extreme pollution. No high-caste person would ever touch it. Therefore, the task of removing and processing the dead animal falls to those who are already considered polluted. You are essential to maintaining the purity of the village, precisely because you are deemed impure. You walk with your father towards the dead cow. The smell is already beginning to rise in the morning heat. A sweet, cloying odor of decay. Flies buzz in a thick, dark cloud around its vacant eyes and open mouth. You feel a knot of revulsion in your stomach. Your father, however, is all business. This is not a moment for sentiment. This is a moment of labor and opportunity. Nothing is wasted, he tells you, his voice calm and instructional. He hands you a small, sharp knife. We are not just removing it. We are harvesting. He guides your hand, showing you how to make the first cut into the tough hide. It's a gruesome, difficult task. The smell is overwhelming, and the physical reality of it is far more intense than just watching him work on it than leather. But you do it. You have to. He teaches you how to peel back the hide with practiced efficiency. This skin, he explains, is the most valuable part. Once stand, it will become sandals, water bags, and straps. The meat, while forbidden to the upper castes, will be a rare and vital source of protein for your own community. Even the horns and hoofs can be boiled down to make glue, and the bones can be carved into tools or ornaments. This practice, known as Chandala work, was the defining occupation for many untouchable groups. They were the undertakers, the cremators, and the processors of dead animals. This forced profession is a perfect example of what anthropologists call a purity pollution complex, where a society outsources its dirty work to a specific group, then uses the nature of that work to justify the group's social ostracization. As you work, a group of Brahmin boys on their way back from the guru's house stop to watch from a safe distance. They point and whisper, their faces a mixture of morbid curiosity and revulsion. You can hear a snippet of their conversation. One boy explaining to another, "See, that is why they arch and alas. They eat the flesh of cows. They live in filth." The irony is staggering. They condemn you for the very task they require you to perform. They create the conditions of your uncleanness and then despise you for it. This very paradox has been a subject of immense historical and sociological study. How can a society simultaneously depend on and revile a group of people? Some historians argue that this psychological split was necessary to maintain the caste hierarchy, by framing the untouchables not just as laborers but as inherently unwillingly filthy people. The upper castes could justify their own privileged position and wash their hands of the moral implications of such a brutal system. Whether this was a conscious strategy or a slowly evolving social justification is, of course, a matter of ongoing debate. Later that day, back at the hut, the hide is stretched out to dry, and your mother is cooking a small portion of the salvaged meat over the fire. The smell is rich and savory, a welcome change from the usual meager meal of thin gruel. But you can't get the morning's work out of your head. The feel of the knife, the smell of the carcass, the look on the Brahmin boys' faces. You ask your father, is it bad? What we do? He looks at you, his eyes weary from a lifetime of this work and these questions. It is necessary, he says. The village needs to be clean. The people need leather for their lives, and we need to eat. Is that bad? Or is it just life? He offers no easy answers, no grand philosophy, just the stark, unchangeable reality of your world. You are learning your heaven-ordained profession, your SVA Dharma, and you are learning that it is a profession built on the intersection of the sacred and the profane, the necessary and the reviled. It is the work that allows your society to function, and the very work that ensures you will never truly be a part of it. The family's heaven-ordained profession doesn't just define your actions. It saturates your entire existence with its presence. It's a sensory immersion you can't escape. The chief sensation is the smell. It clings to everything. It's in the fibers of your clothes, in the thatch of your roof, in your hair. It's the smell of your father's hands, a complex bouquet of acrid tanning chemicals, the coppery scent of old blood, and the musky odor of animal hide. When he hugs you, this is the smell of paternal affection. You've grown up with it, so you barely notice it most of the time. It's just the smell of home. But sometimes, on days when the wind blows from your settlement towards the main village, you are reminded of how the rest of the world perceives it. You'll see villagers walking on the far side of the path, holding a cloth over their noses. Their disgust is a visible, tangible thing, a judgment carried on the air. Today, you are more deeply involved in the process than ever before. Your father has decided you are old enough to help with the tanning pits. These are not in the immediate vicinity of your hut, but a little further out, a small, desolate area that no one else would ever have a use for. The pits are simple holes dug into the earth, filled with a noxious, milky white liquid, a lime solution used to loosen the hair and remnants of flesh from the raw hides. The stench is eye-watering. It's sharp, chemical, and bites at the back of your throat. You've smelled it from a distance before, but being this close is a physical assault. Your job is simple, but unpleasant. You have to help your father submerge a large, heavy cowhide into the pit. It's slimy and disturbingly pliant. Using long poles, you push it down into the murky fluid. The solution splashes, and a few drops land on your arm. They burn, a stinging, itching sensation. Your father quickly has you rinse it with the brackish water from the nearby stream, but the red marks remain. This is your new classroom. You learn that a hide left in the lime too long will become brittle and useless. A hide not left in long enough won't be properly cleaned. It's a science of decay, a precise art that requires patience and a strong stomach. This introduces a lesser-known fact about many unclean professions. They were often highly skilled. Tanning, for example, was a multi-stage, complex chemical process. Generations of families like yours developed a deep, practical knowledge of local plants, minerals, and techniques to produce different grades and qualities of leather. It was just brute, dirty labor. It was a craft. This knowledge was a form of capital, but one that paradoxically locked them into their low status. As you work, wrestling the slippery, heavy hide, You feel something squish under your bare foot. You look down. You've stepped on the partially decomposed remains of a frog that was unfortunate enough to fall into the pit. You shudder and scrape your foot on the ground, a wave of nausea washing over you. Your father sees your reaction. He doesn't offer sympathy. He offers a lesson. Everything in this world rots, he says, his voice matter of fact as he prods the hide with his pole. Everything dies and becomes something else. The Brahmin, he sees only the impurity in this. He sees the end of something. We see the beginning of something new. This rotting skin will become the shoes that protect his feet from the hot road. It is a transformation. You must see the work, not the filth. He is trying to give you a different lens through which to view your reality. A philosophy of work that finds value and purpose where others see only defilement. It's a coping mechanism, a way to build a wall of dignity around a life that society is determined to strip of it. The historical debate around this is fascinating. Did these outcast communities internalize the shame projected onto them, leading to a sense of fatalism and self-loathing? Or did they develop powerful counter-philosophies and alternative worldviews that allowed them to maintain their psychological well-being? The evidence, gathered from folk songs, oral traditions, and religious practices, suggests the latter. They often created cosmologies where their own deities and ancestors were powerful figures, and where their unclean work was recontextualized as a form of sacred, transformative alchemy. It was a profound act of mental and spiritual resistance. The sun beats down, and the work is exhausting. Your muscles ache, your skin itches, and the smell is relentless. By the end of the day, you feel coated in a layer of grime and stench. This is the physical reality of being at the bottom. It's not an abstract concept of ritual impurity. It's the grime under your fingernails, the ache in your back, the burn of chemicals on your skin. When you finally trudge back to your hut, your mother has a small bowl of thin lentil soup waiting for you. It's the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. You eat, your hands still carrying the ghost of the tanning pit smell. That night, as you lie on your mat, you can't sleep. You close your eyes, but all you can see is the murky white of the lime pit. All you can smell is the sharp tang of decay. You understand now, in a way you never could before, why that field between your settlement and the village is so wide. The smell is a wall, the work is a cage. Your father told you to see the transformation, the new beginning. But tonight, all you can feel is the rot. As you grow, you begin to venture further from the safety of your small settlement. Not for play, but for purpose. Sometimes your father sends you to the edge of the village to deliver a finished product, a repaired pair of sandals, a new strap for a water bucket. These journeys are lessons in social choreography, a complex dance of avoidance and self-effacement. Today, you are tasked with delivering a small, new lead and leather pouch to a potter who lives on the outskirts of the main village. The pouch is for his tools. You hold it carefully. It's a fine piece of work. Your father spent extra time softening it, and the stitching is neat and strong. You feel a small spark of pride in it. The journey takes you to the edge of the market, a place you have only ever seen from a great distance. The market is the vibrant, beating heart of the village. It's a kaleidoscope of sights, sounds, and smells, a sensory overload. Piles of bright red chilies and golden turmerics in next 2 sacks of rice and lentils. The air hums with the chatter of bargaining, the laughter of friends, and the rhythmic clang of a coppersmith's hammer. It's a world teeming with life, and you are a ghost passing through it. You were given strict instructions by your father. Do not walk on the main path if a Brahmin is using it. Stay to the edge. If you must pass someone of high caste, announce yourself, and never, ever let your shadow fall upon them. This rule about the shadow is perhaps one of the most extreme and bizarre manifestations of the purity laws. The belief was that the pollution of an untouchable was so potent that it could be transmitted through their shadow. To have an untouchable's shadow fall on you was to be defiled, requiring ritual purification. This forced people like you to be constantly aware of the sun's position, to calculate your movements in relation to others, a constant, stressful mental exercise. You walk with your shoulders hunched, trying to make yourself smaller, You keep your eyes fixed on the ground a few feet ahead of you. You are a ship navigating a dangerous channel. The other people are reefs and shoals to be avoided. You see two women in bright saris ahead. Deep in conversation, you veer off the path, walking in the rough, dusty scrubland beside it, giving them a wide berth. They don't even notice you. You are doing your job correctly. You are invisible. Then, you approach an narrower section of the path. An older man is walking slowly towards you. He wears the simple white robes and has the sacred thread over his shoulder that mark him as a Brahmin. There is no room to move to the side. The sun is behind you, casting your shadow long and thin in front of you, directly in his path. Panic flares in your chest. Your father's words echo in your head. You freeze. The Brahmin looks up and sees you. His eyes narrow. Chandala, out of the way. He snaps, his voice thin and reedy, but sharp with authority, that there's nowhere to go. You are paralyzed by indecision and fear. What do you do? In this moment, you remember another of your father's lessons, a strange piece of auditory protocol. You cup your hands around your mouth and call out, not in defiance, but in warning. Theria, Theria. This is a fascinating historical detail. In some regions, untouchables were required to make a specific sound or call out a warning as they walked, to announce their polluting presence, so that others could avoid them. Some accounts say they had to wear bells, or snap a wooden clapper. The word you shout, Theria, is a regional name for your community. It's a cry that means, warning, I am here. The unclean one is present. You are using your own name as a warning siren. The Brahmin stops, his face a mask of fury and disgust. He waits, refusing to take another step until you have cleared his path. You scramble backwards, half tripping over a root, and press yourself into a thorny bush at the side of the path, trying to pull your shadow in with you. He stalks past, muttering a curse under his breath, and continues on his way without a backward glance. You wait until he is long gone before you untangle yourself from the bush, your arm scratched and bleeding slightly. The shame is a familiar, bitter taste in your mouth. You delivered your warning. You followed the rules, and the reward was humiliation. The origins of these extreme avoidance practices are, like everything else, debated. Are they ancient taboos that became codified into law, or are they later, more political inventions, designed to make the social hierarchy brutally, unavoidably public? Historians who lean towards the latter view argue that these daily, public rituals of degradation were not just about purity. They were about power. They were a constant, visible performance of who was at the top and who was at the bottom, reinforcing the social order for everyone to see. You finally reach the potter's workshop. It's an open-sided shed, filled with the cool, damp smell of wet clay. The potter, a man of the Shud raw caste, sees you coming. He is not as hostile as the Brahmin, but the wariness is still there. You do not approach him. You stop at the edge of his workspace and place the leather pouch on the ground. You then back away a respectful distance. The pouch you asked for, you say, keeping your eyes lowered. The potter looks at the pouch, then at you. He nods curtly. He walks over, picks up the pouch, and inspects it. Then he takes a small copper coin from his waistcloth and tosses it onto the ground where the pouch had been. The transaction is complete. No hands have touched. No pleasantries have been exchanged. You pick up the coin, your payment for your father's skilled labor, and turn to leave. The journey back is the same dance in reverse. A careful, silent navigation through a world that does not want you in it. You are a ghost with a shadow, a voice that is only a warning, a presence that must be erased at every turn. The single copper coin you received from the potter feels heavy in your hand as you walk back towards the settlement. This small piece of metal represents a significant part of your family's survival, but it won't buy much. Your diet, like your social standing, is at the absolute bottom of the food chain. You don't eat what the farmers eat. The fresh vegetables, the plump grains of rice, the creamy milk from their well-fed cows, these are luxuries as distant as the stars. Your food is the food of the margins, the leftovers of a society that considers you less than human. A major source of your sustenance comes from what is known as J.A.J. Mani writes, a traditional system of exchange. It sounds formal, but in practice, it's a system of dependency. Your family performs its essential, polluting services for the village, removing dead animals, turning hides, cleaning latrines, and in return, you are not always paid in kind. More often, you are paid in kind. You see it happen almost every day. After the main village households have finished their meals, a woman will emerge from her home with a leaf plate containing the leftovers, the cold, congealed remnants of their rice, the last spoonful of dal, a few scraps of vegetables. She will not hand it to your mother or any of the other women from your community who wait patiently at a distance. She will place it on the ground, or sometimes on a specific stone designated for this purpose, and then walk away. Only then can your mother approach and collect the scraps. This food, the refuse from their plates, forms the basis of many of your meals. It is often barely enough to stave off the constant, gnawing hunger that is a permanent resident in your stomach. This practice was a powerful to love social control. It created a direct and daily dependence of the untouchable communities on the upper castes, reinforcing the hierarchy in the most visceral way imaginable, through the stomach. Today, however, the collection of leftovers was meager. The coin from the potter is not enough to trade for grain, even the lowest quality broken rice from the market. So, your mother declares that you will supplement your dinner from the wild. You follow her not into the cultivated fields, but into the scrubland and the thin, patchy forest that grows along the riverbank. This is another of your classrooms. While the Brahmin boys learn sacred verses, you learn the intricate botany of survival. Your mother moves with a practiced eye, scanning the ground, the bushes, the trees. This one, she says, pointing to a common looking weed with small, tough leaves. You can boil these. They are bitter, but they fill the belly. She shows you how to dig for tubers, gnarled, starchy roots that require a lot of work for a small reward. She points out which berries are safe to eat and which will bring sickness. This is a fascinating bit of ethnobotanican history. Marginalized communities across the world have historically possessed a deep knowledge of local flora and fauna, often knowing the edible and medicinal properties of plants that the dominant culture ignores or deems as weeds. This knowledge was a critical survival tool. As you search, you stumble upon a small, startling treasure, a handful of mushrooms sprouting from the base of a rotting log. They are pale and delicate. You look at your mother with wide, excited eyes. She inspects them carefully, turning one over in her hand. "These are good," she says with a rare smile. "A little bit of flavor for the soup tonight." You also learn to hunt, but not for the large game that the Kshatriya warrior caste might pursue for sport. Your prey is much smaller. You learn to set simple snares for mice and field rats. The idea of eating rats might sound shocking, but this was the reality for some of the most impoverished communities. They were a source of protein in a diet that was dangerously deficient in it. Historically, the dietary restrictions of the caste system were incredibly complex, while upper castes, particularly Brahmins, often adhered to a strict vegetarian diet for reasons of purity. Those at the very bottom had no such luxury. They ate what they could find, what they were given, and what others would not touch. This dietary difference was then used as another justification for their unclean status. They are impure because they eat meat, carrion, rodents, was the circular logic. There's a debate among historians and anthropologists about the origins of vegetarianism in the upper castes. Was it always a tenet of Hinduism, or did it become more widespread with the rise of Buddhist and Jain influences, which emphasized non-violence ahimsa? Some scholars argue that the upper castes adopted vegetarianism as a way to further distinguish themselves from the lower castes and untouchables, creating another stark marker of social and spiritual difference. By the time you and your mother return to the hut, your small basket contains a pathetic-looking collection, a handful of bitter greens, a few muddy tubers, the precious mushrooms, and a single, scrawny field mouse caught in a snare. That evening, your mother adds it all to a pot with water from the muddy stream and a pinch of salt. The soup that results is thin and watery, but the mushrooms give it a faint, earthy aroma, and the tiny bits of meat are a rare treat. You eat every last drop, scraping the inside of your bowl clean with your finger. As you lie down to sleep, your stomach is, for once, not aching with hunger. It's a temporary reprieve. You know that tomorrow the hunger will be back, and the search for sustenance will begin again. Your life is a constant, precarious balance between the begrudging charity of the village and the meager bounty of the wilderness. And as you drift off, you dream not of feasts or kings, but of a full bowl of plain, simple rice. The small amount of food you manage to gather gives you just enough energy for the next day's labor. Your family's duties are not limited to the gruesome work of handling carcasses. You are also responsible for the most basic sanitation of the village, the sweeping of the streets. This morning, your father hands you a broom. It's not like the soft brooms the village women use to sweep their own clean homes. This is a long, heavy pole with a thick bundle of coarse, stiff twigs bound to the end. It's a tool designed for scraping, not just sweeping. Your task is to accompany your father and the other men from your settlement on their morning rounds. You are the village sanitation department, a job that is absolutely essential for public health and hygiene. Yet another one that bestows only shame, not honor. You walk towards the main village, but you don't enter through the main path. You use a series of small, ignored alleyways, the spaces behind the houses. Your work begins in the pre-dawn light, the same time the Brahmin is chanting his morning prayers. He is purifying the world with sound. You are purifying it with your broom. The work is mind-numbingly repetitive and physically demanding. You scrape at the hard-packed earth of the streets and alleyways, collecting dust, animal droppings, and the daily refuse that people have tossed from their homes. You are not just cleaning. You are removing the evidence of life, the things no one wants to see or acknowledge. As you sweep, you must adhere to a specific, humiliating protocol. This is a peculiar historical detail that varied by region but highlights the extent of the degradation. In some areas, sweepers were required to tie the broom behind them so that it would erase their own polluting footprints as they walked. They were literally wiping away the evidence of their own existence. Your father instructs you in this method. Keep it low, he says, showing you how to hold the broom so it drags behind you, smoothing over the marks of your feet in the dust. We leave the path clean, cleaner than when we found it. It's a strange, illogical act. You are a ghost who must erase his own trail. You move through the village like a phantom. Your only sound the constant, rhythmic sha-sha-sha of the broom. The work is not without its small, strange discoveries. You find things in the dust. A single glass bead, lost from a woman's necklace. A small, thin copper coin, almost invisible against the brown earth. Finding such a coin is a moment of quiet triumph, a secret bonus for your labor. You quickly hide it in your waistcloth before anyone else can see. As the sun gets higher, the villagers begin to emerge. They see you, but they don't. Their eyes slide past you. You are part of the scenery, a functioning piece of the village infrastructure, like a drainage ditch or a fence post. You are not a person. You are a function. This is a core aspect of the system, dehumanization. By associating a group of people with a specific, unclean task, the society at large can stop seeing them as individuals with thoughts, feelings, and families. They become their job. This psychological mechanism makes it easier for the upper castes to accept the profound injustices of the system. You continue your sweeping, moving through the main market area, now empty and quiet before the vendors arrive. You sweep around the base of the large platform where the village elders hold their council meetings. You sweep past the closed doors of the temple, a place you know only from the outside. The very idea that your unclean work is necessary to maintain the cleanliness of the most sacred spaces presents a deep theological and social contradiction. Historians who study the philosophy of the caste system often grapple with this paradox of purity. How can the system function if the pure depends on the impure? One common, though deeply cynical, explanation offered by some ancient texts is that it is part of the divine order dharma The untouchable is born into their role to serve the upper castes, and by performing their polluting duties, they are fulfilling their own cosmic purpose, potentially earning a better birth in the next life. Whether anyone at the bottom actually believed this, or if it was purely a justification from the top, is a question historians are still untangling. It was most likely the latter. As you finish one of the main streets, the village headman, a stern-looking Kshatriya, walks out of his large house. He surveys your work, his eyes scanning for any missed spots. He doesn't speak to your father. He simply gives a curt, almost imperceptible nod of approval. That nod is your only feedback. There is no thank you. There is no acknowledgement of the hard, unpleasant work you've done. Just a silent confirmation that the task has been performed to an acceptable standard. You finish your work as the village truly comes to life. The paths you have just swept are now filling with people, their clean feet walking on the ground you have just cleaned. They are starting their day on a fresh slate that you have provided. As you walk back to your settlement, dragging your broom behind you, you look back at the village. It looks clean, orderly, and peaceful. You helped make it that way, but you are already forgotten. Your only legacy is the clean ground and the faint, whispering sound of your broom, a sound that the village needs, but never wants to hear. You have fulfilled your purpose, and now you must disappear. The world of rules you inhabit is not just about social etiquette and religious taboos. You are about to learn that it extends to the very concept of justice, and that this concept, like the water from the well, is not for you. It happens one sweltering afternoon. A dispute breaks out at the edge of the field, near the muddy stream. It involves one of the men from your community, the quiet, hard-working man named Keolan, and a farmer from the village. The farmer is shouting, his face red with anger, jabbing his finger at Keolan. "Thief, you stole water from my irrigation ditch. I saw you." The farmer bellows. Keolan stands his ground, but his posture is defensive. His voice is low, trying to be reasonable. "No, sir." The bank collapsed. A little water spilled onto the path. "I was just fixing it." "Lies," the farmer screams. "You people are all liars and thieves. You were trying to divert the water to your hovels." A small crowd gathers, mostly from the village side. They murmur in agreement with the farmer. No one listens to Kella N's side of the story. His word is worthless against that of a caste villager. The situation escalates. The farmer, emboldened by the support of the crowd, shoves Keolan hard. Keolan stumbles back, but keeps his hands down. He knows that to even raise a hand in self-defense would be a death sentence. Any act of violence from an untouchable towards a higher caste person, regardless of the provocation, was considered an unforgivable crime. The village headman is summoned. He strides over, his face a grim mask of authority. He doesn't ask for an investigation. He doesn't ask for witnesses from both sides. He listens to the farmer's angry, one-sided accusation for a moment, then turns his cold eyes on Keolan. Justice is swift and brutal. Keolan is tied to a tree. The farmer is given a stout wooden rod. The headman proclaims the punishment: 20 lashes for the crime of theft and insolence. You watch, hidden behind a scraggly bush, your heart pounding in your chest. The people from your own community stand silently at a distance, their faces etched with a mixture of fear, anger, and utter powerlessness. They cannot intervene. To protest would be to invite the same punishment, or worse. The farmer administers the beating with a grim satisfaction. Each lash is met with a dull thud and a pained grunt from Keolan, who bites his lip to keep from screaming. It's not a legal proceeding. It's a raw, brutal display of power, meant to be a lesson for everyone. This is a stark illustration of the legal status of untouchables in many historical contexts. They had virtually no legal rights. The law, as codified in texts like the Manusmriti, prescribed wildly different punishments for the same crime depending on the caste of the perpetrator and the victim. An upper caste man might receive a minor penalty for harming a lower caste person, while a lower caste person would face extreme punishment for even a perceived slight against an upper caste individual. They were outside the protection of the law. After the 20th lash, Keolan is cut down. He slumps to the ground, his back a crisscross of bloody welts. The farmer throws the rod down, spits on the ground near Keolan, and stalks off, his honor supposedly satisfied. The headman gives a final, warning glare towards your community, and then disperses the crowd. Once they are gone, the men from your settlement rush forward. They gently lift Keolan, his body limp with pain, and carry him back to his hut. There is no doctor to call. The village physician would not touch him. His family will have to treat his wounds with their own folk remedies, poultices of crushed leaves and salves of animal fat. The question of how such a system of blatant injustice could be maintained is a subject of much historical analysis. It was just brute force. It was heavily reinforced by religious doctrine. The concept of karma was often twisted to serve this purpose. The suffering of an untouchable in this life was framed as a just punishment for sins committed in a past life. Therefore, their miserable condition was not an injustice to be rectified, but a divinely ordained state of being. This theological justification provided a powerful moral and ethical loophole for the upper castes, allowing them to perpetuate and benefit from the system with a clear conscience. That evening, a heavy silence hangs over your settlement. The usual quiet conversations are replaced by a tense, somber quiet. You can hear the low moans of pain coming from Kella and S. hut. You sit with your father as he sharpens one of his leatherworking knives. The rhythmic scrape of steel on stone the only sound. You finally break the silence. It wasn't fair, you whisper. He didn't do it. Your father doesn't stop his work. Fairness is a crop that doesn't grow in our field, he says, his voice slow and hard. There is their justice, and there is our survival. They are not the same thing. What you saw today that was not about water. It was about reminding us of our place. He is teaching you the most difficult lesson yet. It's not about brooms or shadows or water wells. It's about the fundamental structure of power. You learn that in this world. The truth does not set you free. The truth is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is who has the power to tell the story and who has the power to wield the rod. And in the story told by the village, you are always the villain, and you are always deserving of the punishment. The beating of Kale-Am makes one thing painfully clear. The grand, ornate temple in the center of the village, the one whose spire you can see from your hut, is not a place of solace for you. Its gods are not your gods. Its justice is not your justice. To enter it would be a defilement of the highest order, an act that could get you killed. And yet, your community is not without faith. It's just a different kind of faith, one that lives in the shadows, in the spaces the official religion ignores. One evening, long after the sun has set and a sliver of moon hangs in the inky sky, your grandmother takes your hand. Come, she whispers, it is time to pay our respects. She doesn't lead you towards the village. She leads you deeper into the scrubland behind her settlement, to a small, secluded clearing you've never been to before. In the center of the clearing stands a small, misshapen cluster of stones. They aren't carved or polished like the idols in the main temple. They are simple field stones, smeared with vermilion and turmeric paste, giving them streaks of vibrant red and yellow in the moonlight. At the base of the stones are a few humble offerings. A single marigold, a small mound of rice, a little clay lamp with a flickering flame that casts dancing shadows all around. This is your temple. Several other families from your community are already there, gathered in a silent, reverent circle. There is no Brahmin priest in white robes, chanting in a language you don't understand. There is just your grandmother, an elder of the community, who steps forward and begins to speak. Her prayer is not in the classical, formal Sanskrit. It's in your own dialect, the language of your home and your heart. And she doesn't pray to Vishnu or Shiva, the great gods of the Hindu pantheon whose stories you sometimes overhear. She speaks to a local deity, a goddess of the land whose name is known only to your people. Hello, Mother of the Earth, she chants, her voice raspy but strong. You who see our struggles, you who live in the soil we walk upon, protect us, heal our sick, Give us strength to face the morning. Keep our children safe from harm. This is a key aspect of popular religion in South Asia, often existing parallel to the more formal, text-based Brahman Igal traditions. These are the little traditions of villages and outcast communities. They often revolved around local nature spirits, ancestral ghosts, and protector goddesses who were seen as more immediate and accessible than the distant, great gods of the official pantheon. These deities understood suffering because they were part of the same soil, the same world. After the prayer, another elder tells a story. It's not a grand epic of kings and celestial wars. It's a story about a clever ancestor from your own community who outsmarted a greedy merchant. It's a tale of resilience, of finding dignity and humor in the face of oppression. These stories, a form of oral history, are your scriptures. They teach you your values, preserve your history, and remind you that you come from a line of survivors, not just victims. A fascinating piece of this alternative religious life is the role of spirit possession in shamanism. In many untouchable communities, certain individuals were believed to have the ability to channel the local deities. During rituals, they would enter a trance state, their bodies becoming a vessel for the god or goddess to speak directly to the community, offering advice, warnings, or blessings. This was a powerful subversion of the religious hierarchy, while the Brahmin mediated with the gods through ancient, unreadable texts. Your shaman brought the divine directly into your presence. It was a more democratic, immediate, and personal form of faith. The exact relationship between these folk traditions and mainstream Hinduism is a complex topic that scholars constantly debate. Were these entirely separate religions, or were they a variant of Hinduism? A low-caste interpretation of it. Some argue that many of the folk deities were later absorbed and assimilated into the mainstream Hindu pantheon as minor gods or consorts, a way of domesticating and controlling these alternative power structures. Others see a persistent and resilient tradition that consciously defined itself in opposition to Brahmanical dominance. As the small ceremony concludes, people begin to quietly disperse, heading back to their huts. The little clay lamp is left to burn itself out, a single point of light in the darkness. You feel a sense of peace you have never felt before. The main temple in the village, with its high walls and powerful gods, feels cold and forbidding. It is a place of judgment. This small, humble circle of stones feels like a place of refuge. It is a place of understanding. Your grandmother walks with you back to the hut. Their gods live in stone temples, she says, her voice soft in the night air. Our gods live in us, in our stories, in our memories. They can lock us out of the temple, but they cannot lock our gods out of our hearts. You look back at the flickering light in the clearing. You realize that your community has built its own world, with its own rules, its own heroes, and its own gods. It's a world born of necessity, a spiritual fortress built to withstand the constant siege of shame and exclusion from the world outside. And for the first time, you feel like you are part of something, not just excluded from something else. The faith you discover in the clearing provides spiritual comfort, but it cannot mend a broken bone or cure a fever. The physical well-being of your community is as precarious as its social standing, and just as isolated. A few weeks after the beating, Keelan is still in a bad way. The wounds on his back have become infected. HES, feverish, and his wife's poultices of crushed neem leaves, a traditional antiseptic, are not enough. He needs more help than the community's folk knowledge can provide. The village has a physician, a Vaidya. He is a learned man, skilled in the ancient science of Ayurveda. He knows how to balance the body's humors, how to set bones, and which herbs can fight disease. His services, however, are not available to you. The Vaidya, often from a higher caste, would consider touching an untouchable to be a source of profound ritual pollution, one that could invalidate his spiritual purity and thus his healing abilities. This creates a terrible paradox. The people most likely to suffer from injury and illness due to their hazardous occupations and poor living conditions are the very people denied access to professional medical care. So, your community turns inward. You have your own healers. They are learned men who study ancient texts. They are often older women, like your grandmother, who possess a vast, unwritten library of knowledge passed down through generations. Your grandmother is known as a healer of fevers. She goes to Kelo in his hut, taking you with her. The hut is small and filled with the stale, heavy air of sickness. Keo lies on a mat, shivering despite the heat, his breathing shallow. Your grandmother doesn't use complex theories. She uses her senses. She feels his forehead. She looks at the color of his tongue. She smells his breath. Then she sends you out to gather specific plants, not the bitter greens for filling the stomach, but specific roots, barks, and leaves. You become her apprentice. She shows you how to identify a certain vine whose leaves, when crushed and applied as a paste, can draw out infection. She has you dig for a specific gnarled root that, when boiled into a bitter tea, helps to break a fever. This is a deep well of ethnobotanican, undethnomedical knowledge. These outcast communities were the custodians of a whole pharmacopoeia that was ignored by the formal, text-based medical traditions. They knew the secrets of the local landscape because their survival depended on it. A particularly curious detail of this folk medicine is the integration of magical and spiritual elements. As your grandmother prepares the herbal tea for Kaelan, she mutters a soft chant under her breath, then incantation to the spirit of the plant, asking it to lend its power to the healing process. For her, the chemical properties of the herb and its spiritual energy are inseparable. The physical and the magical are two sides of the same coin. While Kaelan is being treated, a baby in another hut develops colic, crying inconsolably. The baby's mother, desperate, knows she cannot go to the Vedya. But a strange transaction takes place. She sends her older son to the Vedya's house. The boy doesn't go to the front door. He goes to the back, near the rubbish heap. He leaves a small bundle of firewood, a humble payment, and then calls out the baby's symptoms from a distance. Later, the Vedya's wife emerges and leaves a small packet of powdered herbs on a stone. The boy retrieves it without ever seeing or speaking to the Vedya himself. It's a form of distance medicine, a transaction that allows the physician to provide a cure without incurring the pollution of direct contact. The history of medicine in India is rife with these complexities. The question of who had access to which forms of healing is a major topic of study. While Ayurveda was a sophisticated and documented system, its practice was often intertwined with the rules of caste. Some scholars argue that the folk traditions of the lower castes and outcast communities were not just a poor substitute for real medicine, but a robust and valid system in its own right, one that was more holistic and accessible to the common person. The debate continues on how much these two systems, the formal and the folk, secretly borrowed from each other over the centuries. Your grandmother's remedies, combined with the community's care, begin to work their slow magic. After several days of the bitter tea and the fresh poultices, Kaelan's fever breaks. The infection begins to recede. He will be weak for a long time, and the scars on his back will be a permanent reminder of the village's justice. But he will live. You have witnessed a quiet, powerful act of self-reliance. Your community, denied access to the formal systems of care, has developed its own. It is a system built on shared knowledge, mutual support, and a deep connection to the natural world. It may not have the prestige of the Vedya's science, but for Kaelan, it was the difference between life and death. You learn that healing comes in many forms, and sometimes the most powerful remedies are not found in a physician's bag, but in the hands of a grandmother who knows which roots to dig for in the dark. Life, even in the harshest of circumstances, finds a way to continue. Sickness and injustice are part of your world, but so are the fundamental human experiences of love, partnership, and family. As you grow from a boy into a young man, these things begin to enter your mind. The search for a partner, however, is not a matter of romantic wandering through the village. The same invisible walls that dictate your access to water and temples also define your marriage prospects. Your world of potential partners is confined entirely to your own small community or to other similar communities, and neighboring regions. To even think of a relationship with someone from a higher caste is not just impossible, it's a transgression of the highest order, one that would lead to swift and lethal consequences for both parties, but especially for you. This strict practice of endogamy, marrying only within one's own specific caste or subcaste jati, is the engine that keeps the entire caste system running. It ensures that the lines of purity and pollution are never blurred, that the hierarchy is passed down, intact, from one generation to the next. So, your world of romance is small, but it is still a world. The process is not one of individual courtship, but of family and community negotiation. Marriages are arranged. It is not about a flight of fancy, but a practical alliance between two families. You begin to notice a young woman named Maya. She is from a family that specializes in a different, but related, unclean task. They are the ones who clean the village latrines. Her family is considered even lower than yours by some, but within the complex microcosm of your outcast settlement, they are the acceptable. She is quiet and strong, with intelligent eyes that seem to miss nothing. You see her carrying heavy pots of water from the muddy stream, her movements graceful despite the burden. You sometimes exchange fleeting, shy glances. There is no open flirtation, no secret meetings. The connection is a silent, unspoken acknowledgement. Your parents notice it, too. They have been observing Maya and her family for some time. Is she hardworking? Is she healthy? Is her family respected within the community? These are the important questions. One evening, your father and mother go to visit May as parents. They don't go empty-handed. They bring a small gift, a piece of exceptionally welt and leather, soft as cloth, a testament to your family's skill. This is the beginning of the negotiation. The conversation is a delicate dance of formal pleasant reasons, subtle inquiries. Your family's lineage within the community is discussed. May's skills are praised. An agreement must be reached on the bride price or dowry. This is a point of some historical debate. While dowries, gifts from the bride's family to the grooms, became more common in upper castes, many lower caste and outcast communities historically practiced bride price, where the groom's family compensates the bride's family for the loss of a productive member. It was a reflection of the high value placed on women's labor in these communities. In your case, the agreement is modest. Your family will give May as family a set of new leather working tools and promise the skins from the next to cows you process. Her family, in turn, will provide a few cooking pots and a new sleeping mat. The alliance is forged. The wedding ceremony is nothing like the grand, multi-day affairs of the wealthy villagers. There is no lavish feast, no procession through the streets. The ceremony takes place in the same clearing where you worship your ancestors. Under the light of the moon, the entire community gathers. An elder, not a Brahmin priest, presides over the union. You and Maya sit before the sacred stones. You don't exchange complex vows from ancient texts. The ritual is simpler, more direct. You tie a thread, colored yellow with turmeric, around her neck. She, in turn, offers you a betel nut, a symbol of acceptance and partnership. You walk around the small fire 3 times. You are now married. A small, humble feast follows. Everyone has contributed what little they could. A handful of grain, some for aged vegetables. There is music not from sitars and flutes, but from a hand-made drum with a head ute and yourself. And the raw, powerful singing of the elders, telling stories of love and hardship. This reveals a fascinating aspect of social history, the resilience of cultural forms. Even when denied access to the dominant culture's rituals, marginalized groups don't simply cease to have them. They create their own, imbued with their own meanings and values. These ceremonies, while resource poor, were often rich in community solidarity and emotion. Your life with Maya begins in a new hut, one that you and your father built next to your family's. It is small and simple, but it is yours. You are no longer just an individual navigating the world's cruelties. You are a unit, a partnership. You face the world together. You learn the rhythm of a shared life, You wake up together in the pre-dawn cold. You go about your separate, difficult labors during the day, you in the tanning pits, she in the alleyways of the village. In the evenings, you meet back at your hut, share what little food you have, and find comfort in each other's presence. It is a life stripped of all illusion. There is no pretense of romance or grandeur, but in its place, there is something solid and real, a partnership forged in the crucible of shared hardship. It is a bond of mutual support, a quiet understanding of the world you both inhabit. In this small, prescribed circle, within the confines of a brutal system, you have found a measure of equality and companionship. You have built a family, not just as a continuation of a lineage, but as an act of defiance against a world that tries to deny you your very humanity. Your new hut, the one you share with Maya, is more than just a shelter. It's a symbol of your new life, but also a constant, physical reminder of your place in the world. Its construction and location are dictated by the same unwritten laws that govern every other aspect of your existence. You could not, for instance, decide to build your home on a nicer plot of land closer to the village. You couldn't even build it on a slightly higher patch of ground within your own settlement if an elder family already resided there. Your home had to be here, on this specific patch of marginal land, designated for your community for generations. This spatial segregation is the most visible and concrete manifestation of the caste system. Villages were, and in some cases still are, laid out according to a map of purity, with the highest castes living in the center, near the temple, and the untouchables on the absolute periphery, often downstream or downwind. The materials for your house are not bought from a market. They are gathered, scavenged, and repurposed. You and your father spend days cutting solid, straight branches from the scrubby trees in the wasteland. These will form the main frame. You don't have the luxury of quarried stone for foundations or fired bricks for walls. Your foundation is simply the packed earth, raised and leveled by hand. The walls are a mixture of mud, clay from the riverbank, and chopped straw. This technique, known as wattalinda, is one of the most ancient building methods in the world. You weave a lattice of thin branches, the wattle, and then plaster it with the mud mixture, the daub. It's labor-intensive and messy, but it's effective and, most importantly, free. A curious, and often debated, detail in some historical accounts is the addition of cow dung to the plaster mix. From a modern perspective, this sounds unsanitary. However, it served several practical purposes. It was an excellent binding agent. It had some insect-repelling properties. Then when dry, it was a surprisingly good insulator, keeping the hut cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. For the upper castes, cow dung was a purifying agent used in rituals. For you, it is a practical building material, another one of the system's many ironies. The roof is the most critical part. You learn to thatch, another skill passed down from father to son. You gather bundles of tough river reeds and long grasses, letting them dry in the sun for days. Then, starting from the bottom and working your way up, you tie them in overlapping layers to the wooden frame. A well-thatched roof can keep out the monsoon rains, but it requires constant maintenance. It's a living part of the house, always needing patching and mending. There are no windows. Windows are an opening, a vulnerability, and also a luxury. The only opening is the low doorway, which you cover with a flap of stiff, and hide. Inside, the space is small, dark, and intimate. The floor is packed earth, which Maya will sweep clean every day and periodically rake out with a thin layer of wet mud to keep the dust down. There is no furniture. You have sleeping mats woven from reeds, a few clay pots for cooking and storing water, and your father's gift of leather-working tools hanging from a peg on the wall. Your home is defined not by what it has, but by what it lacks. It is the architecture of absolute necessity. The construction of these homes raises a question for architectural historians and archaeologists. How do you study the lives of people who left behind so little? The grand temples, forts, and palaces of the kings and priests survive for centuries, but a hut made of mud, wood, and straw will melt back into the earth in a few short decades, leaving almost no trace. This archaeological invisibility means that the history of the vast majority of people, the poor and the marginalized, is incredibly difficult to reconstruct. Scholars have to rely on textual references which are often biased, artistic depictions, and ethnographic studies of more recent communities to piece together what life might have been like. One afternoon, as you are putting the final touches on the thatch, a group of village children stop at a safe distance to watch you. They've never seen a house being built up close. One of them, bolder than the rest, shouts, "Why are your houses made of mud? Ours are made of brick." It's not meant to be cruel, just a simple, honest question from a child, but it hits you with the force of a physical blow. You don't have an answer for him. You can't explain the complex web of social, economic, and religious rules that force you to live this way. You just continue your work, pulling the thatch tight, making sure the knots are secure. Every motion is a silent answer to the boy's question. We build with mud because we are not allowed stone. We build with straw because we are not allowed tile. We build on the edge because we are not allowed in the center. That night, you and Maya lie down for the first time in your own home. The air inside smells of fresh mud and dry grass. Through the gaps in the thatch, you can see a few stars. It's not a palace. It's not even a proper house by the standards of the village. But as you lie there, with Maya's hand in yours, it feels like a fortress. It is the one place on earth that is yours. A small sanctuary that you built with your own two hands. A tiny island of existence in a hostile world. Life with Maya settles into a rhythm. A predictable cycle of labor and rest. The daily humiliations become routine. The ever-present hunger a dull, familiar ache. You learn to navigate your small world with a practiced caution. But one day, a random, unforeseen encounter reminds you that no amount of caution can ever truly make you safe. It happens on a searingly hot afternoon. The sun is a white-hot coin in a bleached-out sky. You are returning from the river, where you were washing a fresh hide, a preliminary step before the foul-smelling tanning process. The hide is heavy and wet, slung over your shoulder. You are taking a less traveled path back to the settlement, hoping to avoid any unnecessary encounters. As you round a bend, you come face to face with a man. You stop dead in your tracks. He is a Brahmin, an elder you recognize from the village temple. He is not just any Brahmin. He is known for his extreme piety and his obsessive adherence to the laws of purity. The path is narrow, bordered on one side by a thorny hedge and on the other by a steep, muddy ditch. There is no easy way to give him the wide berth that protocol demands. Panic, cold and sharp, shoots through you. The sun is directly behind him, meaning your shadow is projected behind you, away from him. That is one small mercy, but your physical proximity is a disaster. You are too close, far too close. You immediately do what you have been taught. You avert your eyes, lower your gaze to the dust, and begin to back away slowly, trying to melt into the landscape. But it's too late. He has seen you, and he has seen the wet, dripping hide on your shoulder. To him, you are the physical embodiment of everything unclean, a walking vessel of pollution. He doesn't shout, he doesn't curse. He lets out a small, sharp gasp, a sound of pure horror, as if he had just encountered a venomous snake. He stumbles backward, his hand flying up to cover his mouth and nose. "ADH," he cries out, his voice choked with revulsion. You have befouled the air. Your presence, you are frozen. You have done nothing wrong, nothing intentional. You were simply walking, but your very existence, in this place, at this time, is the crime. He continues to back away from you, his eyes wide with a genuine, unfeigned terror. This is not just social snobbery. His reaction reveals the deep psychological reality of this belief system. For a man like him, this accidental proximity is a spiritual catastrophe. He believes he has been genuinely contaminated, that his ritual purity, accumulated through a lifetime of prayer and observance, has been shattered in an instant. This highlights a key feature of the pollution ideology. It was often asymmetrical. While you were considered permanently and inherently impure, a high caste person's purity was seen as fragile, something that could be lost through accidental contact and had to be restored through complex and oft uncostly purification rituals. Prayashchitta. These could involve fasting, ritual bathing, expensive offerings to priests, or even consuming unpleasant substances. Suddenly, the Brahmin's foot slips on a loose stone. He windmills his arms, trying to regain his balance, but his backward momentum is too great. He tumbles, not into the thorny hedge, but sideways, into the muddy ditch. He lands with a wet squelch, his pristine white robes instantly stained with brown, foul-smelling mud. For a split second, there is absolute silence. You stare, horrified. Fear, the symbol of ultimate purity, is now physically covered in filth, and in his mind, you are the cause. You should run. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to turn and flee, but you are paralyzed by the enormity of what has just happened. He struggles to his feet, sputtering, covered in mud. He looks at his stained robes, then at you. The look in his eyes is no longer one of fear. It is one of pure, unadulterated fury. You did this, he shrieks, his voice trembling with rage. Demon, you have assaulted me. You have polluted me. He is rewriting the event in real time. In his narrative, your mere presence actively caused his fall. You are no longer a passive source of pollution, but an agent of malevolent spiritual aggression. The question of intent in cases of pollution is a fascinating one that ancient law actually grappled with. Was accidental contact as serious as intentional contact? The legalistic answer often depended on the specific text and commentator, but in the court of public opinion, and in the raw emotion of the moment, such distinctions were meaningless. You were guilty by virtue of being there. You finally break out of your paralysis. You drop the heavy hide and turn and run. You run harder than you have ever run in your life, not looking back. You don't stop until you have reached the relative safety of your settlement, your heart hammering against your ribs, the Brahmin's enraged screams echoing in your ears. You burst into your hut, gasping for breath. And tell Maya and your father what happened. Your father's face grows grim. He knows the consequences of such an event. However accidental, it will not be forgotten or forgiven. The Brahmin's public humiliation requires a scapegoat, and there is only one possible candidate. You have done nothing but be born into the life you were given. But today, you learned that your very existence can be interpreted as an act of aggression. You are a walking crime, a breathing transgression, and you know, with a sickening certainty, that there will be a price to pay for the Brahmin's fall. The fallout from the incident with the Brahmin is not immediate, but it hangs over your settlement like a storm cloud. A tense, fearful silence replaces the usual quiet resignation. Everyone knows that an accusation from such a man, however baseless, cannot be ignored. The village will demand retribution. A few days later, the summons comes. It is not a formal decree, but a cold, verbal order delivered by one of the headman's servants, who shouts it from the edge of the field. A body needs to be dealt with. An old man from the Shudrak has died in his home, and it is your community's duty to handle the funeral rites. Specifically, a task is assigned to your family. This is no coincidence. This is your punishment, disguised as a duty. Handling the dead is the most polluting task of all, the one that most firmly cements your status as an untouchable, while your family's main trade is leatherworking, which involves handling dead animals. Dealing with a human corpse is a different level of defilement. It is a job reserved for the lowest of the low, a task often forced upon families as a form of punishment or social discipline. Your father accepts the duty with a stony, resigned expression. He knows there is no refusing. To refuse would be an open act of rebellion, and the consequences of that would be catastrophic for the entire community. He looks at you, his eyes heavy. You will come with me, he says. It is time you learned this, too. You feel a knot of dread tighten in your stomach. This is the one job you have always feared, the one spoken of only in whispers. You and your father walk to the dead man's house. You are not allowed to enter through the front door. You must use a small, separate entrance at the back, one reserved for this exact purpose. The family of the deceased is gathered outside. Their faces a mixture of grief and a distinct, uncomfortable revulsion towards you. They want their loved one to be cared for, but they cannot bear to be near the ones who must do the caring. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of death and incense. The old man's body lies on a mat, covered with a white cloth. Your job is to prepare the body for cremation. You must wash it, anoint it with oils, then bind it in a fresh shroud. This is the ultimate paradox of purity. The grieving family, in their desire to ensure a pure and proper passage for the deceased's soul, must rely on you, the most impure of men, to perform the most intimate and sacred final acts. Your unclean hands are the ones that must make the body clean for its journey to the next world. Your father guides you through the process with a grim, methodical efficiency. His voice is low and steady, a small anchor in the overwhelming sea of your fear and disgust. Be respectful, he murmurs. This was a man, just like us. He lived, he breathed. Now his journey is over. Our job is to help him on his way. He is teaching you to find a sliver of humanity in a profoundly dehumanizing task. This role of funeral director for other castes is a historically documented reality for many Dalit communities. They were the ones who had to manage the cremation grounds, known as Shmashana, which were always located on the outskirts of the settlement and considered highly inauspicious places. They built the pyre, they placed the body upon it, and they were often the ones who had to ensure the fire did its work completely. A particularly grim and little-known aspect of this duty involved the skull-breaking ritual, or Kabdal-Kriya. In some traditions, it was believed that the soul could be trapped in the body, and to release it, the skull had to be cracked open, either by the heat of the pyre or manually with a staff. This final, violent act was often performed by the chief mourner, but in many cases, the untouchable attendants had to assist or complete the task. You carry the shrouded body on a simple bamboo bier to the cremation ground by the river. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with old ashes and charred pieces of wood. You and your father build the funeral pyre, stacking the logs with a practiced geometry. The family follows at a distance. The eldest son, the chief mourner, comes forward to light the pyre. As the flames catch, he and the rest of the family retreat, their ritual duty done. They will not stay to watch the body burn. They will go to the river, purify themselves from their proximity to death, then begin their period of mourning. But your job is not over. You and your father must stay. You must tend the fire, ensuring it burns hot and consumes everything. You must watch as the human form is rendered down to ash and bone. It is a long, somber, and profoundly unsettling vigil. As you stand there, the heat of the fire on your face, the smoke stinging your eyes, you look at your father. His face is illuminated by the flickering flames, and you see not disgust or shame, but a deep, sorrowful dignity. The historical and religious justification for this division of labor is, of course, rooted in the idea of pollution, but sociologists see it differently. They argue that by outsourcing the raw, visceral reality of death to a specific group, the rest of society can maintain a psychological distance from it. You are not just handling a body. You are absorbing the community's fear and anxiety about mortality itself. You are the vessel for their collective dread. When the fire finally dies down hours later, leaving only a bed of glowing embers and white ash, your work is done. You will return in the morning to gather the ashes for the family. You walk back to your settlement in the dark, the smell of smoke clinging to you like a second skin. You haven't just been punished for the Brahmin's fall. You have been initiated into the deepest, darkest secret of your identity. You are the one who walks in the places others fear, who touches what others will not, who sees what others turn away from. You are the guardian of society's final, most terrifying threshold, the one between life and death. The heavy weight of the cremation duty lingers for days. Life returns to its normal rhythm, but the memory of the fire and the unsettling dignity of your father's face have changed something in you. You are more acutely aware than ever of the world you are locked out of. This feeling becomes sharpest during the time of the annual temple festival. It's the biggest event of the village year, a multi-day celebration to honor the village's patron deity. The energy in the air is palpable. Even from your settlement across the field, you can hear the distant, festive sounds, the rhythmic pounding of drums, the high-pitched melody of a CHNAI, and the joyous shouts of a crowd. The village is transformed. Brightly colored banners hang from the houses. The market is filled with special stalls selling sweets, flowers, and trinkets. People are dressed in their finest clothes, their faces bright with excitement and devotion. It is a time of community, of celebration, of shared faith, and you are forbidden from any part of it, for you and your community. The festival is a time of increased work and starker exclusion. You are needed to sweep the streets more thoroughly to prepare for the grand procession. Your leatherworking skills are in demand to repair the straps of the processional drums or the harness of the temple chariot. You do the backstage work that makes the main event possible, but you are not allowed to see the show. One evening, at the height of the festival, the desire to see it, to just catch a glimpse of the magic, becomes overwhelming. You know it's a foolish, dangerous impulse, but you can't resist. You tell Maya you are going for a walk and slip away into the dusk. You don't try to enter the village. You creep along the periphery, using the shadows of the trees and bushes as cover, until you reach a spot on a small hillock that overlooks the main temple square. From here, you can see everything. The sight takes your breath away. The temple is ablaze with light, hundreds of oil lamps flickering on its carved stone walls, making it look like a palace of gold. The square is packed with a dense, swaying sea of people, their faces upturned and filled with awe. The main event is about to begin. The great temple doors swing open, and a wave of sound washes over the crowd, a crescendo of bells, drums, and chanting. The temple priests, clad in silk, emerge, carrying the idol of the god on a jewel-encrusted palanquin. The crowd roars its approval, a single, unified voice of devotion. You watch, mesmerized. The air is thick with the scent of incense, camphor, and jasmine garlands. The procession begins to move slowly through the square, the idol swaying gently on the shoulders of the priests. People press forward, trying to get closer, to offer a flower, to receive a blessing, to just be in the presence of their god. It's beautiful, and it's a beauty that is not meant for you. You are a spectator in a foreign land, watching a ritual that actively excludes you. Your presence here, even hidden on a hill, is a transgression. This exclusion from public religious life was one of the most painful aspects of untouchability. Religion was the center of social life, and to be barred from the temple was to be barred from the heart of the community. This is a well-documented historical fact, referenced in countless texts and oral histories. The temple was the ultimate symbol of the pure space, and your entry would constitute the ultimate act of defilement. As you watch, you notice a small, strange detail. One of the main drummers in the procession is beating a large, double-headed drum with a powerful, intoxicating rhythm. The drumheads, you know with absolute certainty, are made of cowhide, hide that was likely processed by a family just like yours, in a pit just like yours. The sacred sound that is driving the entire ceremony, the very heartbeat of their faith, is produced by a material that you are condemned for touching. The hypocrisy of it is so stark, so blatant, that you almost want to laugh. It is the central, insane paradox of your existence, played out on a grand stage with lights and music. Historians and sociologists have long debated the psychological and social function of this paradox. Did the upper castes not see the contradiction, or did they see it and simply not care? Some scholars argue that it's a form of compartimentality, wherein objects the pure drum is mentally separated from its impure origins, your labor. Others suggest it's a deliberate and conscious demonstration of power. We can take the product of your unclean work, purify it for our own sacred purposes, and give you nothing in return, not even the right to witness it. This transforms the object from a simple product into a symbol of the hierarchy itself. The procession completes its circuit and the idol is carried back into the temple. The crowd begins to disperse, their faces glowing with a serene, post-ritual bliss. The festival will continue with feasting on music long into the night. But the main spectacle is over. You remain on the hillock long after the square has emptied. The lights of the temple dimming one by one, the sounds of celebration become a distant murmur. You are left alone in the darkness, with the ghost of the music in your ears and the bitter taste of the paradox in your mouth. You have seen their God, their glory, their community, and in seeing it so clearly, you have never felt so completely and utterly alone. The grand spectacle of the festival leaves you with a lingering sense of injustice. The world feels more structured, more permanent, and more unfair than ever before. You begin to wonder if it has always been this way, if anyone has ever tried to push back against the invisible walls. In your community, open talk of defiance is dangerous. It's a spark that could bring the wrath of the entire village down upon you. But resistance exists, not in loud proclamations, but in whispers, in stories told late at night when only the most trusted ears are listening. One evening, you are sitting with a group of elders, including your father and the old man who tells the stories at your folk rituals. The air is cool, and a small fire crackles, keeping the insects at bay. The conversation is quiet and somber. They are talking about the recent death of a man in a neighboring untouchable community, a man who was beaten for trying to draw water from a high-caste well. This leads the old storyteller, his face a road map of wrinkles, to delve into the past. He was not the first, he says, his voice a low rumble. There have always been those who were too proud, or too thirsty, to accept their place. He begins to tell a story, not one of the usual folk tales about clever ancestors, but a darker, more cautionary tale. It's about a man from your own community, 2 generations ago. A man named Biharavi. Biharavi was strong, the storyteller says, and his spirit was like a wild bull. He did the work, heat, and the hides, but he never learned to bend his neck. He would look a Brahmin in the eye. He would not scurry off the path like a frightened mouse. The other elders nod grimly. They know the story. It is part of your collective, secret history. One year, he continues, the monsoon failed. The streams ran dry, even our muddy one. The only water left was in the main temple tank, a deep reservoir fed by an underground spring. Our children were sick with thirst. Biharavi watched his own daughter weaken, her lips cracked and dry. One night, he could bear it no longer. He said, the gods would not deny water to a dying child. He took a pot and walked, not to the back of the temple, but to the main gate. He pushed it open and walked into the sacred courtyard. A collective gasp goes through the small group, even though they've heard it before. It is the ultimate transgression. This act, entering a temple, was the most potent form of protest available to an untouchable. It was a direct challenge to the very foundation of the purity pollution complex. Historically, these temple entry movements would become a major feature of the anti-caste struggle in the 19th and 20th centuries. But the story you are hearing is from a time before organized movements, a time when such an act was one of individual, desperate courage. The temple priests found him there. The storyteller's voice drops to a whisper, dipping his pot into the sacred water. The alarm was raised. The whole village descended on him. They called him a demon, a defiler. They said he had polluted the temple, angered the gods, and that the drought was now his fault. They dragged him from the temple. They did not just beat him. They made an example of him. The storyteller hesitates, his gaze distant. They tied him to the very chariot he had helped repair and paraded him through the village before he was silenced. Permanently, the fire crackles in the heavy silence that follows. The story is a brutal reminder of the price of open defiance. And the water, you ask, your voice barely audible. The priests declared the entire temple tank polluted. Your father says, speaking for the first time, his voice hard as stone. They spent a month performing purification rituals. They emptied and refilled it bucket by bucket. During that time, 3 of our children, including Biharavi's daughter, died of the thirst sickness. The story of Biharavi is not just a cautionary tale. It's a complex lesson. He is both a hero and a fool, a symbol of courage and a symbol of the futility of individual resistance against an overwhelming system. The historical accuracy of such oral traditions is Of course, a point of academic debate. Can a story passed down through generations be considered historical fact? Many historians now argue that yes, they can be, while details may be embellished. These narratives often preserve the social memory of real events and reflect the lived experience of oppression in a way that official, top-down histories never could. They are a vital source for understanding the history of the voiceless. The old storyteller looks around at the faces in the firelight. We tell this story, he says, not to scare you from being brave. We tell it so you understand the cost. We tell it so you know how to choose your battles. Biharavi fought with his fists. We must fight with our wits. We survive by being smarter, by knowing when to be invisible, by keeping our community strong from the inside. That is our resistance. You learn that night that resistance is not a single, glorious act. It is a spectrum. It ranges from the spectacular, fatal defiance of Biharavi to the quiet, daily acts of your own life, telling your own stories, worshipping your own gods, maintaining your dignity in the face of constant humiliation. Biharavi's story is a tragic epic, but your father's grim determination to get through the day is also a form of resistance. It is the slow, stubborn, unyielding refusal to be completely erased, and it is the only form of resistance that, for now, will keep you alive. The story of Biharavi cements a hard-earned cynicism in your heart. The world is a place of rigid rules and brutal consequences. You expect nothing from the people of the main village but suspicion, disgust, and at best, a complete indifference. And then, one day, something happens that disrupts this predictable pattern. A small, inexplicable act of kindness. It's the height of the dry season, the time of year when your settlement's meager resources are stretched to their thinnest. The work is harder, the food is scarcer, and the heat is a relentless enemy. You are in the parched field that separates your world from theirs, trying to dig up some tough, stringy tuberous that are one of the few things that still grow in the baked earth. It's grueling work. Your back aches, and sweat stings your eyes. You are so focused on your task that you don't notice the young woman approaching. She is from the village. You realize with a start, she is the daughter of the headman, a girl you have seen from a distance but never interacted with. She is of the Kshatriya warrior caste, a world away from you. You immediately drop your gaze, your body tensing for the expected rebuke or dismissal. But she doesn't shout or walk away. She stops a few feet from you. You can see her feet, clad in simple but well-made sandals that might have been made from leather your father tan. You look thirsty, she says. Her voice is soft, not laced with the usual contempt or authority. You are so startled that you don't respond. You just keep your eyes fixed on the ground. You hear a soft clinking sound, and then the gentle splash of water. You risk a quick glance up. She is holding a brass cup, which she has just filled from a water skin she carries. It is clean water, cool water, not the murky liquid from your stream. She stoops down and places the cup on the ground between you, then backs away to a respectful distance. Here, she says. You stare at the cup. It's a trap, you think, a test, a prelude to some new humiliation. Why would she do this? Is she trying to trick you into a polluting act, so she can raise the alarm? Your mind races through all the possibilities, all of them negative. She seems to sense your suspicion. A flicker of sadness crosses her face. It's just water, she says quietly. My father says the heat is a cruel master to everyone. She then turns and walks away, without another word, leaving the cup of water sitting in the dust. You wait until she is gone. You look around. No one else is watching. Cautiously, you crawl forward and pick up the cup. The brass is cool against your fingers. You lift it to your lips and drink. The water is the most wonderful thing you have ever tasted. It's cool, clean, and sweet. It soothes the fire in your throat and washes away some of the dust and bitterness of the day. You drink it all. Then you place the empty cup back on the ground. You know you cannot keep it. The metal itself is now considered polluted by your touch, but being metal, it can be ritually purified by its owner. This small, anonymous gesture throws your entire understanding of the world into confusion. It doesn't fit the narrative. You have been taught that all high caste people are oppressors, that the system is a monolithic block of hatred. But this one act, this one cup of water, suggests something more complicated. The existence of individual kindness within a brutal system is a difficult thing for history to capture. Official records and grand narratives focus on conflict, laws, and large-scale oppression. They rarely have room for the small, interpersonal moments that defy the norm. Yet, these moments must have happened. Not all individuals are perfect embodiments of their society's ideology. This raises a question that historians and sociologists sometimes ponder: the role of individual conscience versus systemic pressure. How many people in the upper castes privately felt that the system was unjust but were too afraid of social ostracism to speak out? How many performed small, secret acts of kindness, like the headman's daughter, as a way to soothe their own conscience without challenging the overall structure? We can never truly know the answers, as such quiet attacks leave no historical footprint. They exist only in the memory of the recipient. You go back to your work, the taste of clean water still on your tongue. The gesture doesn't change anything. Not really. You are still an untouchable. Your family is still condemned to a life of hardship. The system is still firmly in place. And yet, something has shifted inside you. The world is no longer black and white. A tiny crack of gray has appeared. It doesn't make you hopeful for a grand change. It doesn't make you trust the villagers. In fact, it's almost more unsettling than the open hostility. The hostility is predictable. You know how to navigate it. Kindness is a wild card. It's an anomaly that doesn't compute. You never speak of the incident to anyone. It's a secret you keep locked in your own heart. It is a single, inexplicable date, a point that doesn't fit the graph of your life. A moment of grace in a world you knew only to be graceless. A cup of cool, clean water, offered for no reason at all. On a hot, merciless day, the cup of water from the headman's daughter becomes a small, persistent puzzle in your mind. It was an act of humanity that defied the cold logic of the system. And as you grow older and your understanding deepens, you begin to see that the system's logic is not just cruel, but also profoundly, absurdly paradoxical. You are now a man, working alongside your father, a master of the trades that define your existence. You are strong and skilled. Your hands, stained and calloused, can turn a foul-smelling, rotting hide into a supple, valuable commodity. You can build a sturdy, waterproof roof out of nothing but grass and reeds. You can cleanse the village of its filth and stand vigil over its dead. Your work is undeniably essential. Without you and your community, the village could not function. This realization comes into sharp focus one afternoon. You are delivering a set of newly made leather straps to the very farmer who once accused Kaelan of theft. He needs them for the harnesses of his oxen. Just before the plowing season, his prosperity, his ability to cultivate his fields and feed his family, depends on the strength and quality of your work. You follow the usual protocol, placing the straps on the ground and backing away. He inspects them, his face impassive. He grunts in satisfaction the work is good. He tosses a few coins on the ground and turns away. As you walk back, the central, glaring contradiction of your life strikes you with the force of a physical blow. They call you impure. Your touch pollutes. Your shadow defiles. Your very presence is a stain. Yet, they depend on the fruits of your impure labor for their own pure lives. The Brahmin needs the drum you can't hear to praise his gods. The farmer needs the harness you make to till his sacred land. The headman's daughter needs the sandals on her feet to walk the clean paths you sweep. Every aspect of their clean, orderly, and pious world is built upon a foundation of your unclean, disorderly, and reviled work. You are the society's immune system, handling the dangerous and toxic elements so that the main body can remain healthy and pure, but you are treated like the disease itself. This is the ultimate paradox of purity. It's a system that requires the impure to exist in order to define and maintain the pure. If everyone were pure, the category would cease to have meaning. Your degradation is not an unfortunate byproduct of the system. It is a necessary structural component. Use it with your father later. Mending a torn water bag. You try to put your swirling thoughts into words. They hate us, you say. But they need us. How can both be true? Your father looks up from his work. A flicker of something, maybe sad pride in his eyes. He has wrestled with this question his entire life. They need the work, he says, making a careful distinction. They don't want to need the man. They have built a wall in their minds between the two. They take the leather, but they pretend it appeared by magic, without a person like me attached to it. This psychological mechanism, the separation of a product from its producer, is something social theorists and historians have studied extensively. It allows a society to benefit from exploitative labor without confronting the humanity of the laborer. In your world, this is reinforced by a religious and social structure that declares the laborer himself to be inherently flawed and unworthy. It's a perfect system for guilt-free exploitation. The exact origins of this paradoxical arrangement are, naturally, a source of endless scholarly debate. Did the system begin with a practical division of labor that later acquired a religious justification for its inherent inequality? Or was it the other way around? Did a pre-existing ideology of ritual purity lead to the consignment of certain groups to polluting tasks? This chicken and egg question is one of the central arguments in the history of caste. There is no consensus, only a recognition that by the time of your existence, the economic and religious aspects are fused into a single, seamless, and brutally effective system of control. You start to see the paradox everywhere. You sweep the dust from the temple steps, a place you can never enter, making it clean for the feet of the pure. You remove the carcass of a dead goat from the road, preventing the spread of disease for a community that denies you access to its healers. You are the foundation holding up the building, hidden in the dark, damp earth, while the residents above admire the view and praise the architect, never once thinking about the stones they stand upon. This new understanding doesn't make you angrier. The hot anger of your youth is cooling into something else, a cold, clear-eyed perception of the absurd. The system is not just unjust, it's a lie, a carefully constructed, self-perpetuating lie that everyone, from the highest Brahmin to the lowest farmer, has agreed to believe. Everyone except you. You are on the outside, and from the outside, you can see the cracks in the walls. You can see that the emperor, in his pure white robes, is wearing shoes that you made, and this knowledge, this secret, is a strange and lonely form of power. Years pass, the seasons turn, and your life, once a confusing whirlwind of lessons, settles into a deep, unchanging groove. Your hands are now as calloused as your father's. Your heart is shielded by a thick layer of resignation and hard-won wisdom. You are a husband, you are a son, and then, one day, you become a father. Maya gives birth to a son. You hold him for the first time in the dim light of your mud hut. He is so small, so perfect. His tiny fingers curl around one of your own, a grip that feels impossibly strong. In that moment, the world outside your hut, the village, the rules, the paradoxes, all of it melts away. There is only this new life, this small, warm weight in your arms. The fierce, protective love, so powerful it frightens you, rises in your chest. For a few days, this joy is a world unto itself. You and Maya exist in a small bubble of wonder. You watch him sleep. You listen to him breathe. He is a clean slate, a perfect being untouched by the dirt of the world. But the world does not stay outside for long. It seeps into the cracks in the walls, carried on the air. As you look at your son, a cold, heavy dread begins to creep in, chilling the warmth of your joy. You realize, with a sudden, gut-wrenching clarity, that you now have to teach him everything you were taught. You will have to be the one to lead him away from the main village well. You will have to explain why the other children won't play with him, why they will call him names you can't protect him from. You will have to teach him the demeaning choreography of avoidance, the art of making himself invisible, the shame of his own shadow. You will have to be the one to place the scraper in his small hand and lead him to his first dead animal. You will have to watch his face as he breathes in the stench of the tanning pits for the first time. You will have to explain a system of justice that will never be just to him. You will have to pass down this heavy, suffocating blanket of an identity, this inheritance of shame. The thought is a physical pain. You have brought a new soul into this life, only to chain him to the same rock you are chained to. This passing down of trauma and oppressive identities from one generation to the next is the engine of all systemic inequality. It's a subject sociologists and psychologists study in modern contexts, but its roots are ancient. The caste system was brutally effective because it was self-replicating. The family, which for most people is a source of safety and identity, was for you also the primary instrument of your own subjugation. Your parents, who loved you, had no choice but to teach you the rules that oppressed you, because failing to do so would get you killed. One evening, you watch Maya humming a lullaby to the baby, a soft, sad melody that her mother probably sang to her. You are overwhelmed by a sense of futility. What kind of life have we given him? You whisper to her in the dark, the same as ours. Is that all there is? Maya stops humming. She looks from the sleeping baby to you, her eyes full of a strength that has always humbled you. Yes, she says, her voice firm, but not unkind. It is the same life, but we are here. We will teach him what your father taught you, and what my mother taught me. We will teach him how to survive. She reaches out and touches your hand. But we will teach him more than that. She continues, we will teach him our stories. We will take him to the sacred stones and show him our gods. We will teach him that his worth is not what the village says it is. It is what we know it to be. We will teach him how to be strong on the inside, where they cannot see. Her words are not a promise of a better future, but a strategy for enduring the present. It's not about breaking the chains, but about learning to live with them without letting them crush your spirit. The nature of this internal spiritual resistance is a topic that has gained more attention from historians in recent years. For a long time, resistance was primarily seen in terms of political uprisings or social reform movements. But scholars now recognize the profound importance of these quieter, internal forms of resistance, the maintenance of alternative value systems, the passing down of counter-narratives, and the cultivation of an oppositional consciousness within the family and community. This was not a passive acceptance of fate. It was an active, ongoing psychological battle. You look at your son again, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the great, heavy weight that awaits him. Maya is right. You cannot change the world he has been born into, but you can shape the man who will face that world. You will teach him the bitter lessons of survival. Yes, but you will also teach him the secret lessons of dignity. You will teach him that his hands, though the world calls them unclean, have the power to create. You will teach him that his spirit, though the world tries to crush it, belongs only to him. You will pass down the burden, because you must. But you will also pass down the shield, the love of his family, the strength of his community, and the stubborn, unyielding knowledge of his own true worth. The inheritance is a curse, but you will do everything in your power to make sure it is also a blessing in disguise. Time flows like the muddy stream beside your settlement slowly, but relentlessly. Your son grows from a baby into a boy, and you, in turn, feel the years settling into your bones. Your father, once a pillar of strength, is now an old man, his hands gnarled with arthritis, his work passed on to you. You have become him. You watch your son, whose name is Ravi, meeting sun, play in the dust outside the hut. He is a bright, curious child. You have begun to teach him the lessons. You have seen the confusion in his eyes when you pulled him away from the village children's games. You have seen the hurt on his face when you explained why you must drink from the stream and not the well. Each lesson is a small cut on your own heart. You had hoped, in some foolish, secret corner of your mind, that things might change, that the world might shift, just a little, but it has not. A new headman has replaced the old one's father. A new priest serves in the temple. The faces in the village change. Children are born. Old people pass away. Dynasties might be rising and falling in distant capitals you've never heard of. Great battles might be fought. But here, in this small, circumscribed world of your village, nothing changes. The rules are eternal. The distance across the field remains the same. The disgust in the eyes of the high caste villagers is passed down from parent to child, as surely as your trade is passed down to your son. This inertia, this incredible resistance to change, is a hallmark of the caste system. Its genius, from a sociological perspective, was its decentralization. It was dependent on a specific king or a central political authority to enforce it. It was enforced at the village level by the community itself. It was woven into the fabric of daily life, into every interaction, every transaction, every ritual. This made it incredibly durable, able to withstand political upheavals and even changes in ruling religions. One afternoon, you are sitting with the elders, listening to a traveler, a rare visitor from a distant community like your own. He brings news. He speaks of a new teacher who has arisen in the north, a man who speaks of equality and compassion, demon named Gautama, the Buddha. The traveler says this Buddha teaches that a man's worth is determined not by his birth, but by his actions. He says that the path to enlightenment is open to all, regardless of caste. A flicker of excitement runs through the group. Could this be it? A way out. This introduces the historical context of challenges to the caste system. Buddhism and Jainism, which arose around the 5th century BCE, were two of the most significant early challenges to the Brahmanical social order. They rejected the hereditary authority of the Brahmins and the validity of the caste hierarchy, attracting many followers from the lower castes and those, like you, who were outside the system altogether. But the old storyteller, his eyes clouded with the wisdom of many seasons, pours cold water on this spark of hope. I have heard of such teachers before, he says, his voice raspy, and of others who came before them. Their words are like a cool breeze in the hottest summer. It feels good for a moment, but the sun is still there. The land is still baked dry. The village will not change. He continues. The Brahmin will still be a Brahmin. The farmer will still own his field, and we will still have our duties. A new god in the sky does not change the mud on the ground. His cynicism was hard-earned and, in many ways, historically accurate. While Buddhism and Jainism became major religions, they did not manage to eradicate the caste system. In many regions, caste identity persisted, even among converts. The social structures proved to be more resilient than the theological challenges. The debate among historians is about the extent of their impact. Did they offer a genuine path to social mobility for some? Or did they merely create parallel hierarchies within their own communities? The answer is likely somewhere in the middle, a complex picture of partial success and ultimate compromise. You see the truth of the old man's words as the years go on. Some people in the region may talk of the Buddha, but the headman still demands your services for free. The priest still considers you a defiler. The rules do not bend. Your life becomes a series of repeating cycles. The cycle of the seasons, from the brutal heat of summer to the life-giving but destructive monsoon rains, and back again. The cycle of your work, from the gruesome task of processing a carcass to the finished product of supple leather. The cycle of life and death, as you see your son grow while your parents age and eventually pass on. Their funeral pyres tended by your own hands. You come to see time not as a straight line moving towards a better future, but as a wheel, endlessly turning. You are born at the bottom of the wheel, and you will die at the bottom of the wheel. Your son was born at the bottom, and his son will be, too. There is a strange, melancholy peace in this realization. The struggle against the system, the hope for change, was exhausting. Accepting its permanence, its unchanging nature, allows you to focus on what you can control: your work, your family, the preservation of your community as inner world. You are no longer looking for a way out. You are focused on how to live within, how to carve out a space of meaning and dignity in the shadow of a mountain that will not move. The seasons will turn. The rulers will change. The gods may even change. But you are here. Your people have always been here, and your task is simply to endure, to survive the turning of the great, merciless wheel. In a life defined by invisibility and the erasure of your own trail, the human need to leave a mark, to create something of beauty and permanence becomes a quiet, desperate hunger. You cannot build a grand temple or write a lasting poem. Your legacy is written in materials the world deems worthless, in moments no one else will ever see. As you get older, your skill with leather reaches a level that surpasses even your father's. It becomes more than just a trade. It becomes your art. You learn the secret tempers of different hides. You can make leather as tough as wood or as soft as silk. Your stitches are not just strong, but neatened even, forming their own subtle patterns. This is your canvas. One day, while processing a goat hide, you notice its unusual thinness and pale. Even color, an idea takes root in your mind. A departure from the usual sandals and harnesses. You decide to make something for Maya. Something with no practical purpose other than to be beautiful. You spend weeks on it in your spare moments. After the day's hard labor is done, you use the most careful tanning techniques, creating a piece of leather that is almost white and incredibly soft. Then, using a sharpened bone AWL, you begin to press patterns into it. Not writing, you are still illiterate, but pictures. You decorate the small piece of leather with the images that make up your world. You tool the outline of the banyan tree at the edge of the village, the one whose shade you could never enter. You press in the shape of the sacred stones where you worship, and the faint outline of the moon that shines down on them. You create a border of the leaves you use for healing and the feathers of the birds that sing near your stream. It is a map of your life, a testament to your world, etched onto a piece of its own refuse. This act of creating non-utilitarian art is a powerful statement. For people in marginalized positions, art is often a space of freedom, a way to express an identity and worldview that is suppressed in daily life. Historically, many untouchable communities developed rich artistic traditions, from music and oral poetry to painting and craft. These were not just hobbies. They were vital forms of cultural preservation and self-expression. The so-called Madhurandi or Mithila painting style, for instance, is now world famous, but it originated as a ritual art form practiced by women in their homes, an art that for a long time was completely invisible to the outside world. When you are finished, you have created a small, soft pouch, too delicate for tools or coins. It is an object of pure art. You give it to Maya one evening. She takes it, her work-roughened fingers tracing the images you have made. She doesn't say anything for a long time. When you look at her face in the flickering lamplight, you see tears shining in her eyes. She understands what you have done. You have taken the material of your shame and transformed it into a thing of beauty. You have told your story. This small, private act of creation gives you a new sense of purpose. You begin to look at the materials of your trade differently. The smooth, gray bones left over from a carcass are no longer just waste. You start to carve them. You carve small, pocket-sized figures. An owl, a fish, a tiny, detailed carving of your son's face. You give them to the children in your community. They are not grand idols, but they are talismans of your own making. Small pieces of permanence in a transient world. Your most personal project is something no one else ever sees. You find a large, flat-sided clay pot. One that cracked during firing in was discarded by the village potter. You take it back to your hut and, on its inner surface, you begin to paint. You don't have fine-haired brushes or a palette of colorful pigments. Your paint is made from what you have. Soot from the fire for black, clay ochre for red, lime for white, and turmeric for yellow. Slowly, painstakingly, you paint the story of your life inside the pot. The face of your mother, your father teaching you how to hold a knife, the humiliating encounter at the well, tail untied to the tree, the secret wedding to Maya, the birth of Ravi, the Brahmin falling in the ditch, the festival you watched from the hill. The inside of this broken pot becomes your secret book, your hidden testament. It is the history of a life that no one else will ever record. The question of hidden or ephemeral art is a fascinating one for archaeologists and art historians. How much of the art of the past has been lost because it was created on perishable materials like wood, cloth, or unfired clay, or in private, domestic spaces? The official history of art is the history of the art that survived. which is usually the art of the powerful stone sculptures, bronze statues, temple murals, but this is only a tiny fraction of the creative output of humanity. Your pot is a symbol of all that lost art, all those unrecorded stories. You keep the pot in a dark corner of your hut. It is for you and you alone. It is a way of saying, I was here. I saw this. It mattered. In a world that strives to make you a nameless, faceless function, this secret pot is your declaration of self. It is a fragile, humble, and utterly profound act of rebellion. You have found a way to leave a mark, not on the world, but for yourself, and in the silent darkness of your hut. That is enough. The wheel of time continues its slow, grinding turn. The boy Ravi is now a man with a family of his own. You are the old storyteller now. Your face a mirror of the elder you once listened to, your voice raspy with age. You have seen your grandchildren born, and you have begun to teach them the same lessons, the same stories. The burden has been passed once more. You spend most of your days now sitting in the sun outside your hut, your hands too stiff for the fine work of carving or tanning. Your body is worn out, a tool used to its absolute limit, but your mind is clear. You have reached a place beyond the daily sting of humiliation, a place of quiet, weary observation. From your vantage point, you watch the endless drama of the village unfold. You see the arrogance of the young Brahmins, the toil of the farmers, the endless cycles of gossip and disputes. It all seems so distant now, like a play you have seen too many times. You know all the lines. You know how it ends. You have outlived so many of them. The headman's daughter who gave you that cup of water is long gone. The Brahmin who fell in the ditch has returned to the elements. His body likely carried to the pyre by your son. Their individual lives, which once seemed so powerful and intimidating, were just as fleeting as your own. Their pride, their rules, their purity, all of it turned to ash. This perspective, granted by old age, gives you a final, profound realization. The only thing that truly separates you is belief, an idea, a story they told themselves, and told you so effectively that it structured the world. That the sun that warms your old bones is the same sun that warms the temple priest. The rain that turns your settlement to mud is the same rain that nourishes the farmer's fields. The sky, a vast, indifferent canvas of blue, stretches over everyone, making no distinctions. This is the ultimate truth that the system tries so hard to obscure. In the face of nature, in the face of mortality, all are equal. The hierarchies, the laws, the rules of purity and pollution, they are all human inventions, as fragile and temporary as a mud-walled hut. This philosophical conclusion echoes the teachings of many mystical and devotional movements that arose throughout Indian history, often as a counterpoint to rigid Brahman, like orthodoxy. The Bhakti poets, for example, many of whom came from lower caste or even untouchable backgrounds, often wrote of a direct, personal, and loving relationship with God that transcended all social divisions. They proclaimed that true devotion, not birth or ritual, was the only thing that mattered. These movements didn't necessarily dismantle the social structure, but they offered a powerful spiritual bypass, a way to claim equality in the eyes of God, if not in the eyes of man. One afternoon, your granddaughter, a small girl with May as intelligent eyes, runs to you, crying, a village boy has called her a foul name and thrown a stone at her. She holds out her arm, showing you the small, red mark. You pull her onto your lap. The old, familiar anger, the one you thought had long since cooled to embers, flickers briefly, but it passes. Anger is a fire that consumes the person who holds it. You have no energy left for that. You do not tell her to be strong. You do not tell her the world is unfair. You have given her those lessons already. Instead, you do something else. You simply hold her, stroking her hair. Then you point a shaky finger towards the sky. Look, you whisper, look at the sky. Is it a Brahmin sky or a Chandala sky? She looks up, confused. It's just the sky, she says. And the sun, you sigh. Does it shine only on their homes and not on ours? No, she whispers. It shines everywhere. That, you say, your voice soft but clear, is the only truth that matters. They can own the land. They can own the wells. They can own the temples. But they cannot own the sky. The sky belongs to everyone. It is your temple. And in that temple, you are not small. You are as vast as the blue above you. Whether this final, transcendent worldview was a common psychological state or a rare philosophical attainment is something historians can only speculate on. It likely represents an ideal, a state of grace achieved by a few who were able to look beyond their immediate suffering. But as a narrative of a human life, it represents the final stage of an internal journey, from confusion and shame, to anger and defiance, to paradoxical understanding, then finally, to a state of quiet, detached peace. You hold your granddaughter until her ears have dried. You have given her the only weapon you have left, a change in perspective, a way to find a universe of freedom inside a prison of circumstance. As the sun begins to set, casting a warm, golden light over the entire landscape, blurring the lines between the village and the settlement, you close your eyes. You have lived your life on the margins. In the shadows, you have been called impure, a defiler, a ghost. But in this final moment, you feel a sense of profound clarity. You are not the dirt on the ground. You are a piece of the sky. The sun dips below the horizon, and the world softens into shades of purple and gray. Your long journey is drawing to a close now. The dust of the ancient village path begins to fade, replaced by the gentle weight of your own blanket. The sounds of a distant, anxious world melt away, leaving only the soft, rhythmic hum of the fan in your room, a steady, comforting presence in the quiet. You can feel the story releasing its grip on you, its sharp edges blurring into the soft fabric of a dream. The feelings of anger, injustice, and sorrow were for that other life, that shadow self you walked with for a while. They are not yours to carry into your sleep. Let them settle, like dust, back into the earth of the past where they belong. Your own breathing is slow and even now, a gentle tide rising and falling. You are safe in your own time, in your own space. The struggles are over. The work is done. There is only rest now, a deep and peaceful rest that you have earned. You are drifting, floating on a quiet, dark river, moving effortlessly towards the gentle shores of sleep. Let the current take you. There is nothing left to do but let go.